Hello, everybody. Welcome into my latest live broadcast. Today is the 10th of June, 2021. My name is Kerry Holzman. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this late start tonight, but finally was able to get things caught up so I can start working on the video backlog. It's one or the other. It's a work backlog or a video backlog. It's like a seesaw or a teeter-totter back and forth. So here we are tonight with another new project that has been brought to my attention from one of my customers. On average, most businesses replace or upgrade their computers every 4 to 6 years. So this computer I've got in front of me, I already upgraded this computer once before. That was in June or July of 2015. And I just found the video. It's a little bit of a late start today. I found the video, I think is this computer from 2015, where I was upgrading it from when I originally built it, probably in 2011. So this is a customer that's been with me, as you can tell just from that math, a minimum of 10 years. They've actually been with me about 15 or 17 years. And one of the reasons we went with these cases, I believe this is a Leon Lee PC99 brushed aluminum $99 case back in the day. And $99 back in the day was like $150 today. And the concept was, or the sales point was, we can keep reusing it. We can keep updating it. You don't have to buy another case. And as you can tell from the back, the power supply still goes up on the top. The main downside, if there's a downside, is that underneath this latch up here, this little door, it's USB 2.0. And that is always going to be USB 2. So anything USB 3 is going to be around the back. Most of the computers I build for clients, they just run trouble-free until they start getting a little slow. And that's usually when I get the call to upgrade. In this case, it started with the optical drives, stopped reading disks. And then it led to some wonky problems that just might be software related. However, given the age of the computer, and that's why I put these stickers on. It says, this one says June 2015. Like, I don't need to know the exact day in June. I just need a general idea of how old the computer is. They've got 13 computers over there. We don't know. They weren't all delivered on the same day. In fact, they didn't always have 13. They had 4, and then they added another. They added another. They added another. They upgraded the ones they had, and they added some more. It all gets very confusing over time, and nobody can remember anything, and digging through a pile of invoices, trying to figure out when you built the darn thing. It's very time consuming. So I was finding another way, was easier, more instantaneous, and that's when the old label maker came in and I was able to come up with this idea of just writing the month and year that I deliver the computers. And then years later, I can tell you if that thing is, if it's over 4 years old, it's certainly time to consider it. And by 6 years old, without a doubt, if for no other reason than security. So that's why you see me do this. I deal with hundreds of computers every year. So I need to be able to identify one from another. I can't remember them all. Laptops and desktops and one-time repairs. This is a retainer client. As I mentioned, I've had them as a customer now for nearly 2 decades. And it all just kind of goes into a blender. You know what I mean? As far as my memory goes, I don't remember when I did this. And besides, I did like 10 of them, I think, at the time. I think they've got 13 now. Maybe I did 8. I can't remember how many I did. And I don't know which one of the 8 this is. And they weren't all upgraded at the same time, and they weren't all built at the same time. And I kept ordering these cases one by one as they ordered computers until the cases were no longer available. And now I've switched them over to Corsair 200R cases, which from a casual glance is close enough to looking the same. It's about the same height, width, and color, except this has a really nice brushed aluminum look to it. But they're sitting on the floor anyway. Nobody's really paying attention, and they don't really need the optical drives anymore. But if we're going to reuse the case, which I haven't decided on, then I'll replace the optical drive because I don't know where the front panel cover is anymore. So for $20, we put another optical drive. It's already cabled up. Now, this is the days right at the end before cable management was really taking over. So this case doesn't really afford any cable management. This would have been probably one of the last computers, towards that era where cable management became a thing, and then case windows and RGB. Well, the case windows and the cable management kind of went hand in hand, because when you put a case window on your case, you want to look in and you want to see the circuit boards. You don't want to see all the cables, right? And then the RGB trend followed after that, and put more emphasis on the looks of the case, and to some extremes in most of what you see on YouTube, just like putting a hat on a hat. Anyway, I want to open this up and take a look at what's in it. I haven't opened it in years. I picked it up from the client's office a few days ago. It's been sitting here waiting for me to make this video. And I've got a ton of other videos and reviews I want to do for you. So one thing at a time. And in the meantime, thank you, Tom Jackson, for $7.77. And a shout out, of course, to Jose. Jose, thank you for your contribution. And John Jack Wilson, thank you, of course. And yeah, hello to all my friends in blue hanging out with us. We've got about 100 people watching this late night broadcast. And hopefully I'll have good internet tonight, and be ready for tomorrow. Tomorrow I will continue, as I always do, Fridays at 1 o'clock Pacific time, to do a computer build. So this will be the last Friday that Mitch is gone for a while. So Mitch should be here next week for the Friday after this to join me on another build. And Kelly Stewart joins us. Kelly also sent a contribution recently. Thank you so much, as always, Kelly. Let's take a look, see what we got. I'll turn this around so you can see what I'm doing over here. In fact, let me try something a little different today. Let's go to a different camera angle. Let's go there, and then I'll stand over here. Maybe you can see a little better than normal. This side, there's not going to be a whole lot to see. This, like I say, there's no cable management on this case, so you can see the depth here, right? From here to here. Not really any room for cables to go back here. Not much to see. Let's take a look at the good stuff. That's going to be on this side. Aha! So this is how we did the cable management before case windows were a thing, and before cable management was a thing. You just had a bundle of cables from your top-mounted power supply. This power supply is like a 430 watt or something. It's been running strong. It's never been replaced. Inside, apart from some dust, we've got a lot of dust in there. We've got a Samsung 2.5-inch SSD. We've got 2 front case fans and a rear fan. Are the 2 front case fans hooked up? I don't know. We've got power going to the 2.5-inch drive, the optical drive, which again they said isn't working. Motherboard is, let's see what we got for board. It's a Gigabyte. This is one of the original USB 3.0 boards, I think. It's still pretty new. This is a GA-H97M HD3, so it's the 97 series chipset. For those of you counting, it went from 97, it went from the 9 to the 100s, to the 200s, to the 300s, to the 400s, and I think now we're into the 500s. It's hard to keep track of it all. But you know, when you see the board says it's a Z170, a Z270, a Z370, a Z470. I think we're into the 500s on Intel. I haven't used one, that's why I'm not certain. Either that or they're around the corner. I can't remember. But I haven't sold any, and so I don't know. Certainly we're into the 400 series for sure, currently on the market. I think the 500s are out. I'm really embarrassed about that because I can't remember. But I don't, if customers aren't ordering it, it's not my issue. And I don't think I hooked the two front fans up. You can see how small the board is in there. Still using the Intel stock cooler to save the customer some money. Got a couple sticks of G-Skill, I'm going to guess DDR3 RAM maybe. I don't know. Was it DDR3 back then? And we've got a 3-pin power LED on here, which you don't see too often. You always see me hook the power LED on the top left row, but there are 2 power LEDs on most motherboard headers. One is in the upper left, that's a 2-pin, and there's one on the lower right, that's a 3-pin. It's the same 2 wires, just separated out. I don't know why. It's still a standard. They still, motherboard manufacturers mostly still offer today, even though it's been a long time since I've seen any new cases that support that. It seems to be for more of a backwards compatibility, just like that additional 4-pin that you've got to attach on the motherboard power connector. I haven't seen a motherboard take a 20-pin power connector in over a decade, maybe 2 decades. Why it's an option, I don't even understand why they're remaining backwards compatible to that, because it makes it more difficult to connect this big power connector onto the board when you've got to manually hold on to that additional 4-pin power controller, which wouldn't be an option except that they're being backwards compatible to some really old tech. But it's still, it's a nice clean install. I mean, when you look right in there, you can see, it's super easy to work on. You can get your hands on there to do what you need to do with lots of expansion bays available. Unfortunately, these bays require special shouldered screws with washers, rubber washers to slide into these. It's like grommets that slide in here. This is why I don't like cases that require these kind of tools. As you can imagine, this case is more than 10 years old. Somewhere the screws and washers that are unique to require the drive installations, they exist somewhere, but who knows where. So cases like the 200R, where there's no tools, there's no drive rails, there's no drive sleds, make my life so much easier down the road. Well, even during the initial install, you just slide the drive in, it locks in place. And for any brand new case manufacturer to not implement that technology that the Corsair 200R has had for 10 years now, it seems preposterous and ridiculous to me. It's completely unacceptable to continue to do things in a more expensive, more time-consuming way that in time can create problems when you lose screws, and the only people who make the screws in most cases is the manufacturer, and even Leon Lee probably couldn't get us these screws since it's been so much time. So I have to decide if I want to put a new board in here, use an NVMe drive, replace the optical drive, and we can still keep this power supply. But for $65, I can just change the case out to the 200R. That'll give us the USB 3.0 up front. And on the other hand, one of the sales pitches again on spending so much money for the case back in the day was that we could reuse it, and we can. I mean, there's no reason I can't put another H370 HD3 in there with a 9700K and a Scythe Mugen 5 or an Noctua U12S or Dark Rock, Be Quiet Pure Rock cooler. Fits in there no problem. Case depth is fine. And we're done, right? We just pull the 2.5-inch SSD out, recycle it, use it in a giveaway or a veteran build. Fans have been fine. We've never had a fan replacement on any of these. Everything is standard, hasn't changed over the years. It's all the same stuff. So I'm pretty sure the link that I put in the video notes below this video is this build. And that video shows what was in it before I put this in it back in 2015. So it seems apropos that I take this apart now. You saw me put it together, and now you can watch me take it back apart. Easiest thing to do is to slide the optical drive out. That's just being held in, I think, by this one tab, and that slides out. I don't really care what's wrong with it. I'm not even going to bother to test it. These are $20. We'll throw this one in the recycling bin, slap another one in there, good to go. So that part's easy, and we won't be using or reusing the solid state drive down here because an NVMe drive is 4 or 5 times faster. So not only can the drive go, but so can the SATA cable. We won't need that anymore. This can go into a keep of spare parts or keep it with the motherboard, because I'm pretty sure there's nothing wrong with the board. I think over this period of time, through a number of upgrades and software installations, some stuff has gone a little wonky. So what I will do is just check for a BIOS update, which I don't think there will be any because I always keep this client up to date for BIOSes regardless. We'll run memtest 86, make sure the RAM is okay, and then we'll probably just use this board in a future giveaway for viewers if the board is okay. It's too slow, and I am concerned about the potential security concerns connecting to the modern internet with old hardware is profoundly unwise. It has nothing to do with your operating system. It has to do with the BIOS. It has to do with the way the board was designed. Even the CPU itself, there are exploits on older Intel CPUs, and this is probably going to be the way from the beginning of time and into the future, that as parts get older, exploits get found, new techniques get developed. Somebody says, gee, I wonder if I can do this that nobody ever thought of before, and sure enough, there's an exploit. But because the part is so old, it doesn't get fixed because the manufacturers, there's no money in it for them to fix it. They'd rather you bought something new. And there are certain consumers and business owners who just don't understand security, and that's why ransomware is a huge, huge industry right now. It doesn't matter if it's a government agency or professional, privately owned business. They get struck with ransomware time and time again because they're just, they go through life basically saying it's not going to happen to me, it's never happened before, and I'm not going to spend that kind of money to secure computers that don't have a problem. Then they get the ransomware, and then they pay, 10 to 100 times more than it would have cost to prevent it. I just saw one private company paid $11 million ransomware. The hospitals there in Ireland said, we're not going to pay ransomware. We're just not going to pay it. So then the ransomware folks said, well, here, you can have the key for free to decrypt all your files. That's fine. You don't have to pay us. But you see, we have a copy of all that data, and if you don't pay us, we're going to release it to the public. That's all your patient information, all their medical records. So, you might want to pay us. Not quite sure what the status on that is, except that Ireland seemed pretty darn certain they weren't going to pay ransomware. And I agree with them. I think they shouldn't, because nothing would prevent them from releasing the information anyway, or coming back to ask for more money later. Say, well, you paid us to not release it, but now you're going to need to pay us again to not release it. There's nothing that stops that. Yeah. So anyway, all that can be prevented with proper security protocols, keeping things updated, and you could get lucky and never have a problem with an old computer with ransomware and identity theft and all the other things that come along with the security issues related to old hardware. It doesn't make an impact on my life whether you do or you don't, right? I have to convey the information because I'm on the front lines and I'm the guy who gets the call when it happens. I don't get the call if it doesn't happen. So all I'm seeing are people that are affected. Nobody's calling me to tell me they're not affected. And just because you're not affected doesn't mean you're immune. The only way you stay immune is you've got to keep your system up to date. Too many people think, well, it still works, so I'm not going to get rid of it. But the problem is, it's like driving a car that doesn't have any brakes anymore, or where the technology has changed and the car is no longer safe compared to everybody else on the road. So people make their own decisions, and people will have to accept their consequences whether they like it or not. I just want to tell you. So at least if it happens to you, and it was totally avoidable, you could say, well, now I know what Carrie was talking about, and now I got to find, $10,000 or whatever the ransomware people want, or kiss all my data goodbye and start over again. And so if you think it's going to cost a lot of money now, Just wait. It's just a matter of time. In the meantime, like I said, I don't really care what you do. That's your business. It has nothing to do with me. But you can't claim ignorance. You can't say I didn't know, right? You made your decision. So this client, we were going to upgrade this computer anyway. In fact, there's a few that I made, 3 or 4 that I made in the same period of time. And we decided to start with this one because this one was having some problems. None of the other ones are having any problems, but the newer ones are so much faster. And quite honestly, they're a bit quieter. These little fans, by today's standards, are pretty loud. Back then, they were acceptable. But now you throw a Mugen 5 or, the Noctua or the Be Quiet on there, the ones I typically use on the channel, you don't even hear the thing running at all. We're still using onboard graphics as we've been long before there was a GPU shortage. It's a cost savings for businesses that just simply don't need that nonsense. For video cards, except for people that are in an industry or have a job that requires it, most people that go to an office, they need to do, work involving documentation. It could be database entry, word processing, spreadsheets, websites, email, PDF files, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'd say probably 80% of all workers need a machine like this without a discrete graphics card. And it's been that way as far as I can remember. Or at least as far as, back in the day, there was no such thing as built-in graphics. But since the invention of, or the inclusion of built-in graphics, which used to be on the motherboard and now it's on the CPU, some CPUs, those graphics cards are overkill, honestly, for what most people at work use them for. And so, and as you can see, that's added to our reliability. It's one less thing you got to worry about breaking, one less fan you got to worry about making noise. It's one less expense on the side of what it's going to cost to build a computer. And now that there's a GPU shortage, well, it doesn't affect us. Nothing changes for us. It has no impact on us whatsoever. So there's a great sense of freedom, money savings, independence, reliability. And if we want to hook multiple monitors up, no problem. These built-in graphics can handle multiple monitors. So, just a different perspective for me coming in as a professional versus a lot of tech YouTubers are just hobbyists and they're just looking to spend a lot of money. And like I say, they like to put a hat on a hat, which doesn't make any sense to me. But that's what a hobbyist does. With the professional, you're going to build so many machines, $20 difference, just like saying we don't want an optical drive anymore on 10 machines. You're looking at saving a few $100 there, right? A couple $100. If 5 of those optical drives at $20 a piece are $100, and you've got 10 machines, that's $200. And if the machines are going to cost you $200 less, you might even consider ordering an 11th machine, since it feels like you're getting a discount, really. And of course, they can always get a USB external optical drive on the rare occasion when they need it. And then we don't have to get one for everybody, because they can just put it in the supply closet. When anybody needs it, they can grab it, use it, and then put it back in the supply closet. It's very unusual that more than 2 people would need one at the same time. So I recommended they get 2 of them, right? So if one breaks or somebody's using one, there's a spare, and make sure everybody puts it back when it's done. And it's a lot easier if the external optical drive were to break. There's no repair. You just throw it away and you just go on Amazon and you order another one. You don't even have to involve me. It saves a lot of money and expedites the repair. So yeah, let me pull this board out of here real quick. I was just disconnecting all the power. Right, there's our CPU power, and then there's our motherboard power right there. Right there it is. Well, let's just pull the board out of here. Kind of a funny shaped board. It's a really small micro ATX board. Most micro ATX boards today are quite a bit wider than this. But this was right at the end of that H97, where the chipset design changed significantly, which caused the board to have to be a bit larger. So these were really nice in that the form factor of this board is so small. If I could just see, there it is. Here's our board. Look how tiny it is. If it's gonna focus, will it focus? I'm waiting for the focus. Doesn't want to focus for me. I don't know why. I wonder if I don't have my autofocus turned on this camera. Let's see. Is autofocus on? Focus. Now it should be on. Let's try this again. See if we can. Yeah, that looks much better. Yeah, I think that's DDR3. So yeah, there it is. I mean, it's a pretty easy teardown, really easy to work on, and makes my life so much easier. When you guys are putting your machines together and you rush it through, and you're like, that's good enough, that's going to come back to bite you, because at some point you got to work on it again. And so when you take your time and you do everything nice and neat, you can see how it expedites any sort of repair or upgrade on the system, because everything's easily accessible and organized. So that one screw held this little OCZ drive bay adapter. No, it is an SSD. That won't hurt it. And it's going to be retired and there's nothing we need on it. So if I seem a little careless with it, it's because I already know all this, right? And besides, I would have made a backup of a system before I start working on it for things like that that can cause a problem. But I'm sure this drive still works fine. We've got a Samsung drive in an OCZ enclosure. Those are those little shoulder screws I was talking about that are proprietary to the design of that Lian Li case with the grommet or washer. Good luck finding those anywhere. And the drive, I don't remember what drive this was. We can take it out of here and see. Let me step around this way. It's probably like an 860 or something. Let's try this driver right here. And let me switch you back over to camera 1. There you are. $850. It's an 850 Evo, 250 gigs. Today, for this customer, I'm putting in the 1 terabyte Intel 660 or 665 or 670 NVMe drive. They're $100, around $100 for 1 terabyte. That's 4 times the capacity of this at 1/4 of the physical size. There's no cabling. You just slide it onto the motherboard. And here's a close-up of the drive for you. And that should match what you see in the video link that I sent from all those years ago. One of the benefits of not having anybody touching these computers, like I tell my clients, if you're on a retainer with me, you can't have anybody messing around in here. Because if you guys are making changes and you don't tell me, it's going to make any sort of problem solving far more difficult, and more likely that you're going to need a problem solved. So stay out of there. And if there's a problem, you call me, I'll take care of it. And that's what they do, and that's why they have such little downtime and we've had a great long-standing working relationship for many, many years. It works out best for both of us. And my process has proven to be successful because we've never lost data and we've never had any downtime for the office that had anything to do with me. In other words, there might have been some downtime because their internet service provider was down, or the power to the building went out, or the building, there was a big storm and a tree came through the roof, and so people couldn't go to work. But as far as, because every computer in the office is built to the same software requirements, if somebody were to have a machine fail, which very rarely happens, all they have to do is go sit at somebody else's desk. They have extra computers there, and just go right back to work. Everything that they're saving will be on the server. One of the reasons I installed small solid-state drives was to discourage them from saving anything on these drives. I want them to run out of space very quickly so that they'll call me and say, hey, my computer's crashing or it's getting a low memory errors, and I'll say, oh, well, that's because your hard drive is almost full and you're not supposed to be saving to your hard drive. We don't back those up very often. You want to be putting everything onto the server or the NAS universally. And that way the NAS gets backed up regularly and you don't have any dependence over any particular box. You can sit down anywhere in the office. All the same software's installed. You can get right back to work. And because the backups are made regularly, there's been zero data loss and zero loss of production in nearly 20 years. It's never happened. So the client's not likely going to defy me or my requests when I say, don't let anybody else work on your network. If you want your phone guy in there, that's fine. You got your copy machine guy, fine. But don't try and do any of these repairs yourself. Otherwise, you're making it harder on me, and then I'm going to raise your retainer, because you're going to have more problems and they're going to take longer for me to figure out, since changes will have been made that I wasn't included on. And under those terms and conditions, I have the proof and the evidence to support that that is the smartest way if you want the least amount of cost, the least amount of downtime, and zero data loss. So, all right, so that's my logic. That's how that works. We had a few contributions that came in that I've been missing here, so let me scroll back up and see what I've missed. Looks like we've got a contribution here from Mendel's Photography with $2. Thank you. And Chevy contributes $1. Thanks, you guys. There's Mitch Morrison joining us in the chat room. Mitch says he's heading back to Phoenix on Sunday and he's had a great vacation. Well, just in time, Mitch. We're going to have record heat next week. In fact, it should be about 115 degrees Wednesday and Thursday next week. So you've got that to look forward to. And the air conditioner in Studio B, it works good at night when the sun is down, but when the sun is up, bring a towel. Good to see you, Mitch. And let's just take a look through the chat to see if I've missed any comments or questions that I can answer. In fact, while I'm thinking about it, let me pop this I/O shield out of here. This is always one of my favorite parts. And what I'll do is I'll grab a washcloth and I'll run it under the sink and then wring it out so it's damp. And I'm going to wipe the whole inside of this case and get all the dust off of the drive and all the dust off of this adapter and just clean it up. I suspect I will probably go ahead and reuse this. I was able to find a returned motherboard at Amazon Prime, which is a H370. H370? HD3? I can't remember the model. It's the same one I always use. I can't think of what it is. It's an H370 HD3 gigabyte board with a 9700K. And for whatever reason, the 9700Ks are selling for about $317. And Amazon had returned ones. They had like 4 or 5. They called them like refurbished. I don't know how you refurbish a CPU. But they were like $20 cheaper. I'll take it. So I ordered the returned motherboard and the returned CPU, saved the customer some money. The board was like $75 instead of $110. And in fact, the boards are out of stock anyway. So this was a great solution. And this is exactly the same configuration of the other 4 new computers. The last 4 new ones I built for them are the H370 HD3 with the 9700K and the Intel 1TB SSD. So this will build exactly to those specs, except I built those in 200Rs. That makes my support easier in the future because at least 5 of the machines now will all be exactly identical. Yeah. And it saves the customers some money because they don't really need a 9900K or a 10700 or an 11 gen. You know, they don't need any. They won't notice any difference. They're not going to type any faster. Microsoft Word and Excel aren't going to start any bit noticeably faster by a human being. Maybe nanoseconds. And the price they would pay for that would be a couple $100 more. So this is going to be perfect. It matches what they already have, and it's going to keep my life a bit simpler to support them into the future, because that means 5 out of the 13 or 14 computers will all be identical except for the case. And I don't think they care if it's USB 3 up front or not. They're not moving a whole lot of files that way. Sometimes a client will send them a flash drive or something like that, and they copy the files off of it. It's not many files. It's, again, if the files take 30 seconds to copy on USB 2, they'll take about 10 seconds to copy on USB 3. But the selecting of the files and selecting, where you want to put them still takes the same amount of time for the user to move the mouse and make those decisions in their head. So saving 20 seconds it's not going to matter to these folks. So again, it depends on how you use the computer. I see the model on the back of this case. It's a model PC K7. I thought it was a PC99. Looks like PC-K7 Leon Lee. And I know I sold them a bunch of these. I think they have about 8 or 10 of these. I can't remember. Kind of want to get rid of them, but I also don't want to get rid of it if it's not entirely necessary. Unless there's some benefit to putting the 200R in, I hate to charge my customer for something they don't really care about. I'm just looking through the chat room here to see what I'm missing. If anybody's got any questions for me, this will be a good time to ask me as I'm sort of deciding on how I want to proceed with this. The parts that I ordered from Amazon for the returned motherboard and processor aren't going to arrive until Wednesday. So this is going to need to be cleaned up anyway. And so this will probably be a short video tonight, other than us just hanging out if you have any questions. I do have a number of reviews to do. I've got a couple reviews that are in the works that require some editing and some follow-up. I'm looking around it. Oh yeah, I got a lot to show you, but I don't want to mix it all into one video. I'll make separate videos with separate topics for those items. Arnold says, your AMD chip driver updater app seems to be working fine for me. When can I pay for it and get rid of the nagware in it? You can pay for it. It should, every time the program starts, it probably asks you to pay for it. And if you click the link, it takes you right to the website where you downloaded it. And then you can pay for it there and get your activation code so that the nag will stop nagging you. Yeah. That's been available since the first day it was made available. It's never changed. And it'll keep nagging you to pay. There's no point in nagging you to pay if it doesn't take you to the payment place, right? If you keep telling it, no, I'm not going to pay, it doesn't take you to the payment place. But if you say, okay, I'll pay, then it'll take you there, and it should be pretty obvious where you can pay for it. But thank you for supporting the channel here. Edgar says, what do I think about Indigo computers? I've never heard of them, so I don't really think anything of them. What else do we have? Sean says, Nagware, I love it. Yeah, it's Nagware. We wanted to make an application available to everybody, but we knew that we would file bankruptcy if we gave it away. And we thought, well, we want people to be able to try it without buying it, right? To say if it, to determine what they think it's worth, rather than say we're going to put a price on this. Nick over at D7X Tech and myself discussed this model to see how it's going to work, which is basically to say, look, there's a cost to processing transactions online because you can't pay with cash online. So anything under $5, it's just not worth the paperwork and the fees to process. So we said, okay, a minimum contribution of $5, but you can contribute whatever you think it's worth. You want to contribute $100, $200, whatever. There's already some predefined fields like $5, $10, reasonable, typical, fair amounts that the software we believe is worth any of those amounts, depending on your perspective. And in that way, we're being very honest, right? We're saying, look, we're not shysters. We're not trying to pull something on you. You can use the software fully featured, fully enabled with no restrictions, but it's going to nag you. And if the nagging gets on your nerves, or better yet, you're one of the amazing viewers on this channel who says, this is good and I want to support what Carrie is doing and Nick's fantastic work to maintain and update the software, pay for the distribution and the website, to get it to you and the payment processing and keep all those records straight. It's a lot of work for $5, but the only way that works is in scale. The only way that works is if you have, a few hundred people paying $5. Then suddenly it's like, I can make time to do this. You understand? And if people don't do it, then Nick and I, when we release future software updates, we'll probably have to charge more for those software updates to help pay for this one. And then we're going to set that rate, and that's what it's going to be. But I'm trying to let the community be responsible for how things progress. And you got a little bit of everybody in the community, right? You've got some people, for whatever reason, are just never going to pay a dime. You've got other people that pay very generously or will contribute very generously and really don't ask for anything in return. And we just sort of roll the dice on this and see what's going to happen. So it's very different for both Nick and myself to use this model to distribute the app. But I just thought it was fair to say, look, you can download it and you can see exactly what it does with no restrictions. And then if you like it and you want to get rid of the nag, you can throw a few bucks our way. And if you don't like it and you don't like the nag, uninstall it. Real easy. Everybody wins. So, or, let it nag you constantly and never pay. That's fine too, right? If you don't mind the nag, that's fine. So you've got to motivate people to pay for it somehow. I mean, why should they pay for it if they're not getting anything in return? If we haven't restricted it in some way, and then people who haven't paid for it will say, well, I don't know what these missing features are, so I don't know if it's worth it to pay for it. You know what I mean? So I thought this was the most fair way to go about it. It's not the way to get rich. Nobody who ever got rich probably did it this way. Well, maybe John Carmack and John Romero with their Doom game, they got rich that way. Now they think about it. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. They restricted it. You couldn't get to any other levels. You didn't know what those levels were until you paid. In my case, you're getting everything. Exactly. It's just nagging you unless you pay for the activation code. We'll see how effective it is. I have a theory that we'll sell more this way. I'd rather sell more copies at a smaller price than selling fewer copies at a bigger price. I would rather sell 10 copies at $10 each than five copies at $20 each. I would rather, the software was written to be used. It was written to help people, and I want to get it into the hands of most people possible. And if the majority of those people just pay that minimum $5, Nick and I will do okay, and that'll encourage us to further develop more apps with that model in mind. And if that model, if this experiment doesn't work, then Nick and I will adjust the price of the next app and the current apps accordingly to make up for that loss. So it's in your hands how this all goes down. But thank you for asking the question. Jason Wyrick wants to know where he can find the AMD update tool. If you go to d7xtech.com, up at the top of the page, it says that there's software that they offer, and you will see 3 Uncle Carrie's utilities. There's Uncle Carrie's Windows 10 Optimizer, Uncle Carrie's Windows 10 Netfix tool, and then the latest that we're talking about, Uncle Carrie's AMD Chipset Notifier. And they're all available at d7xtech.com. And I will try to remember to update my default links, because every time I post a new video, I want to have links for the Windows 10 and Office software that I can now legitimately sell you and tell you is real, and I can personally back up and guarantee that software is exactly what it says it is, which I'm not aware of any other YouTube personality that does that. I've never seen any YouTube personality say, I guarantee this, for something that they don't make. But in this case, these Windows 10 and Office keys are legit, they are genuine, and I am 100% giving you my personal guarantee. Now, that's not to say that the company doesn't make mistakes. Every company makes mistakes. So I've had a few people reach out to me pointing out mistakes that the company made. And when I asked them if they asked the company for assistance, they didn't. I'm like, okay, well, my personal guarantee is that if the company doesn't make it right with you, and I mean, right when you reach out to them that same day, there should be a plan in place to get you back to where you need to be, to make it right, then I will make it right. And so far, I've never had to make anything right. The company, when the company has been made aware of a problem, the company solves that problem, and I don't have to step in. And that's why I can confidently give you my guarantee. And if you were the company, what would you do? Would you tell a customer you're not going to give them their $15 or $20 back, so that the guy that's promoting you says, I'm not going to promote you anymore because you're making me look like a fool or a thief, so now you're going to lose thousands of dollars in future sales? Or would you rather return the customers 15 or 20 bucks and continue making money endlessly as I continue to promote your product? They really don't have a choice, right? So I'm very confident, and I mean what I say. If that company drops the ball, and I have several people that aren't being taken care of, I will personally refund their money, and I will stop endorsing them. So they have a lot riding on this. They have a lot of reasons to do everything right. In the meantime, I think I had about 4 or 5 people that had some issues, and so far as I can tell, it wasn't the company's fault. The way the people responded, some people are just victims. As soon as a mistake happens, they think it was done on purpose with intent, and they just scream at me. And it's like, well, did you call their customer service or email you wouldn't call them, email their customer service, and make them aware of it, give them a chance to fix it? Because if you do that and it's still not fixed, then you can scream and yell at me, and I'll do what I have to make it right for you. So there's that. And of course, RoboForm, we're going to keep that up for 30% off all year round. So that's a permanent link, and then I'll have to add permanent links to the apps. And of course, the Amazon store. If you use my link when you shop at Amazon, I make a small commission off anything you buy, and there's no price difference for you. This is a great way of supporting the channel without me having to charge memberships. YouTube's really pushing me hard on the memberships. YouTube wants me to start charging for memberships. And what memberships means is that stuff like this, like these live videos, will be restricted to members only, and then all the pre-recorded stuff and the live videos after they air will be available to non-members. But anything that's interactive would be members only. So we keep the riffraff out of the chat room. We keep the troublemakers out of the chat room. The people that complain the most are the people who aren't paying anything. And I think this is true in life in just about every aspect, but the scale of YouTube is much larger than when you may experience this in other ways. So when I if I have something to say that somebody disagrees with and they get upset by it, that's just ridiculous. There's no reason for anybody to get upset with anything I've said because I'm not talking about them. And so for them to have any expectation over some free content is that you would just change the channel and don't come back. But to sit there and berate me or harass me or stalk me is going to result in a visit from the police department, number one. But number two, it's distracting for all the other viewers involved. So by going members only on that, it removes that entirely from the platform. So I think the quality of the content goes up. However, I really don't want to do the memberships. I really don't want to. I'm trying to figure out other ways to bring the revenue into the channel where I don't have to rely on membership fees and stuff like that. So we may end up going that way anyway, but I'm trying everything I can to provide stuff that you guys are asking me for. You guys are asking me constantly, where can I get a legitimate copy of Windows 10 cheap? And my answer is always, I don't know, because I didn't want to put my liability on it. Again, most YouTube content creators, they have no liability. They don't care. I do care, and I wouldn't recommend anything to you that I wouldn't recommend to a customer in my business with the same liabilities. And that's where I am different from every YouTube content creator out there. I'm not aware of another one who does this in any field, let alone tech. Now, maybe I'm just a little crazy that way, but that's okay. I'm okay with that. I saw one of the most brilliant YouTube marketing gimmicks. Is it a gimmick? Tactic? I don't know what you want to call it, but these two brothers, you might have heard of them, Jake and Logan Paul. They've been on YouTube for about 10 years. And they used to make videos for kids, and they were merchandising to kids. There's a little bit of people being upset about marketing to children, and then all those laws got passed and all that changed. And I talked to you about how YouTube doesn't pay very well. And the genius of the Logan brothers is the way that they used YouTube to make money. YouTube's business model is horrible. Essentially, I can go make a $20 million deal with a sponsor, let's just say, and YouTube doesn't get a cut of it. YouTube is completely cut out of that deal, even though I'm sponsoring the deal utilizing YouTube. And those are the deals that are making content creators money. The money's not coming from YouTube. The money is coming from affiliate marketing deals, and then of course, like what Jake Paul's been into boxing. He's also done singing, and he uses the YouTube platform to market that to his viewers. He's got 20 million subscribers, right? He's only had one professional boxing match. So he, before a boxing match, they typically talk smack to each other during a press conference. They get in each other's faces and I'm going to take you down on Sunday. And no, you don't know what you're talking about. You will see who the real man is on fight day. And they get right into each other's faces. And Jake Paul is basically doing an exhibition match, or was at the time, with Floyd Mayweather, the heavyweight champion of the world. Floyd Mayweather's in his mid-40s. Jake Paul's in his mid-20s. And Jake Paul is very much like a child. He's very much, his behavior is very impish. And he's young, and, I'm sure he has the attitude of immortality, where when he gets punched in the face, he laughs about it, versus I imagine as you get older, you get punched in the face, it kind of hurts a little more. It takes a little longer to heal. There's a lot of hormones and testosterone when you're younger, I think. And anyway, during the press conference, Jake and Floyd were, nose to nose, basically, and Jake's almost a foot taller than Floyd. And they're just talking smack back and forth, and Jake had enough of it, and Jake distracted Floyd with his right hand, and as Floyd was looking at his right hand, Jake reached out and took the baseball hat off of Floyd Mayweather and said, "Got your hat," and then immediately ran. Now this caused a ruckus, as you can imagine, because Floyd Mayweather felt very disrespected by this child in front of the media, made him look like a fool. And Floyd Mayweather's bodyguards are huge, big guys, and they came down on him. Logan Paul jumped in to try and help his brother. A huge fight broke out. Jake, I think, took a right hook to the face and laughed about it. And then Jake started selling hats online that say, "Gotcha hat." He's even got a tattoo on his leg. It says, "Gotcha hat." He turned this into an entire marketing genius marketing tactic at the expense of Floyd Mayweather. And the indelible tattoo on his leg is there to memorialize that event for eternity. And the video went viral, which created a lot of publicity for ticket sales for the boxing match, where I think Jake Paul was paid around $20 million, and I think Floyd Mayweather made about $60 million just on this fight. And what's interesting is Floyd did not knock out Jake. Jake actually came out really strong in that first round and just smacked Floyd Mayweather around like crazy. And then Floyd, obviously they weren't in for, they weren't in to kill each other. It was an exhibition match, but he never knocked Jake out, and Jake lasted the full 8 rounds. And that's only Jake's second boxing match, professional boxing match in his life. So the fact that he didn't get knocked out, that he lasted 8 rounds, you think I'm going to last 8 rounds, Floyd Mayweather, exhibition match or not, ain't going to happen. And Jake's, got a bruised face, and he does a press conference afterwards, and he doesn't at all seem in pain or bothered. To be young again. But that's the genius of using YouTube as a way to take your subscribers or your audience and to promote things outside of YouTube, but use YouTube as that form of promotion. And YouTube's business model was just to throw advertisements in the video. So YouTube maybe would have paid Jake Logan a couple $1,000s for his views, and he made $20 million on the boxing match because he sold a lot of tickets by promoting it through YouTube, and YouTube doesn't get a cut of that. And then when he sold and designed the hats that say "Gotcha hat," it was 100% income for Jake, 0 money for YouTube. Again, the YouTube business model is really, really bad. It's bad for YouTube. It's bad for creators. YouTube would have valued Jake at a couple of grand, and instead Jake valued himself at several millions of dollars. And that's the smart way to be a content creator on YouTube today, until YouTube wises up and figures out they're missing out on a lot of content creators' financial income that they have because of YouTube. But that's how YouTube does it. And so when you see a content creator making a lot of money, that's coming from external sources. You understand? And YouTube's not getting a piece of it. That's coming strictly from a deal. David Dobrik he was working with SeatGeek, he's working with a credit card company, and these deals are worth millions of dollars based on how many subscribers you have, what your demographics are, how many views you get. Casey Neistat, does $1 million deal with Samsung, a deal I could never do because I don't have as many viewers as he has. And that deal with Samsung, YouTube doesn't see a penny of it. So while YouTube may be cutting Casey Neistat a check for a few grand every month, Casey's bringing in hundreds of thousands or more. Same with Mark Rober. Mark Rober does his own merchandising, and I'm not quite sure if he has any sponsorships from some of the videos he's done, but I would be very curious. Mark Rober doesn't seem to live a life of luxury versus other folks, other content creators, again, that are getting that outside sponsorship money. But they're effectively doing is selling you, right? You're the viewer. So what TV networks have been doing since the dawn of television, which is if you have a popular show that a lot of people are watching, you charge more for the advertising because more people are going to see your ad. That's how they determine what an actor is worth. So if 2.5 Men sitcom is the number one on the network, then those actors get paid more because the sponsorship level is so expensive to sponsor that show And the actors say, well, we want more money because we're carrying the network. Folks like Johnny Carson, when they did the Tonight Show, was carrying NBC. It was like the biggest moneymaker NBC had. So when Johnny Carson says, I'm retiring, there's a freak out, right? And when it's a television show, a sitcom, usually those do come to an end at some point. And the question is, does it die a painful death where the viewership drops, the sponsorship money goes down, and now the actors who were once making, $1 million an episode are now getting paid $100,000 an episode. They don't want to do it anymore. It's one thing to acquire that kind of money to do the same amount of work, but then to have somebody take it away from you, but you still have to do the same amount of work, even though you were happy with that money for that work 10 years earlier, it's no longer acceptable to most people to go back to what it was. So in those cases, usually the shows end. So that's sort of the business side of things you may not be aware of and how it works on YouTube. And I share this with you because it's all starting to come together for me as I've been trying to figure it out. And I'm trying to figure out what some of these content creators are doing that's resulting in this enormous wealth, and what am I missing? And I think I've got it all figured out now. And the whole Jake Paul and Logan Paul. I think I called him Jake Logan. It's Jake Paul and Logan Paul are their names. So my apologies for screwing the names up. There was also some confusion regarding that funky case I was working on, like Kadir, what's it called? Kadir? And there was a lot of confusion because I was complaining how none of the YouTube content creators that I saw that reviewed this case spelled the name of the company correctly. This is one of the downsides, I guess, of doing a live video is when I look at the case, I've got the case down here. On the glass of the case, it says Kedires. And on the Amazon page, it says Kedires. And so people in the chat room are like, Kerry, you're spelling it wrong. You're spelling it Kedires. Well, I can't see it on the glass because the glass is in front of the fans and you can't really read it. And the Amazon page, when it's on my screen, is 20 feet away and I can't read it. It's too small. But to my left, I have the box that the case shipped in. So when I'm telling everybody the name is spelled correctly, I'm looking off camera at this box. You understand? And that leads to some confusion with the viewers because the box has inverted the R and the E. The E should be where the R is. So I'm like, it's a Kedires case. It's Kedires. Everybody's spelling it wrong. But on the case itself, the only place it says Kedires is on the glass. It doesn't say it anywhere else. And the R and the E are the other way around. But that shows you the level of detail. The people who manufacture this case probably don't even notice the box is spelled wrong. And I don't recall any YouTube content creators even noticing the box was spelled wrong. I mean, would they knowingly ship the case if they were aware that the box spelled the name wrong? If they're not paying attention, that kind of fits the rest of that case review from last Friday. And I wanted to just make you aware that what I was seeing, what you were seeing were two different things. And maybe the box has got it right and the case has it wrong. I don't know. I assume because it's spelled that way on Amazon, it's spelled with the IERS instead of IRES. I suspect that's probably the way it was intended and the box is a misprint. I don't think anybody noticed the box was a misprint. So I'm sitting here insisting it's spelled IRES and everybody on YouTube is spelling it wrong. I guess it's either way. I mean, there's an old expression. If you have one watch, you know what time it is. If you have more than one watch, you're never quite sure which watch is right. So anyway, it was kind of amusing to me that there was this disconnect between what I was looking off camera at this box, making sure I have the spelling right, and everybody in the chat room is going, no, Kerry, that's not it. I'm like, yeah, I'm looking right at it. That is it. It was after the broadcast that I put it together. I went, I have to hold the glass in a certain light to see the name. or I have to go to the Amazon page and then look at what the name of the company is on the Amazon page, which is it's a pretty small font for me to see from 20 feet away. So anyway, it's kind of fun. All right, so back to the chat room. Again, if you have any questions, Ryan presents a website for Kadirs, and verifies it is IERS, right? But you do see I'm not as crazy as you think I might be, right? I mean, you can see that. It's not just me. That is not how it's spelled here, right? You with me? You understand the point I'm trying to make? I wasn't wrong. I wasn't making it up. I wasn't dyslexic. Whoever printed the box was, apparently. All right. I have a video coming up that it's a little sneak peek. This is a quarter-sized arcade. It is exactly a replica of every dimension of the real Galaga machine, shrunken down 75%. Even the speaker on the real Galaga machine that's up here above the screen, even the bezel around the screen, even the control panel, the decals, the light up marquee, the side stickers, the shape of the cabinet, it is 100%. This logo down here, this is 100% replicating the real Galaga machine. Even has a coin slot, and when I push the button here, it's like simulating a quarter drop. And then we hit player 1. This is the real Galaga at 25%. It's 1/4 the size. It's beautiful. It's the most amazing thing I've ever seen. This company is called Numbskull, and they sell their products, I think, out of England, but they're available at Just Geek US. And they have a Pac-Man, they have a Miss Pac-Man, they have Dig Dug, they have a Space Invaders coming out. And they are, so if you were in the arcades in the 80s like I was, there's nothing more frustrating than these knockoff Galagas and other arcade games that aren't what you played in the arcade. You know, I have these really small Galagas. They're too small to play. This one, you can actually play it. And you notice it's not plugged into anything. It's got a USB port on the back. You can charge up the battery. It'll last about 4 hours on a charge. Even the back of it looks like the back of a real Galaga machine. They sell for about $150, but I think they're going to be collector's items. They don't have much marketing money, so they make them in really small quantities. I'm already seeing them on eBay for $500 and over, even though you can still go to Just Geek and buy one for $155. I'm not an affiliate. I'm not making any money on this. I just think this is the coolest thing I've ever seen. It is so accurate down to every last detail. The dimensions are perfect, precise, and I can't tell you how happy this makes me, other than to tell you I ordered basically a full arcade's worth of different machines. Pac-Man, Miss Pac-Man, Dig Dug. There's a little asteroids made by a different company, and then I put a deposit on the Space Invaders game that's coming out. Everything is exact. And you know, when the arcade game, let me hold the power button in, I'll show you something. We hold the power button in, you'll see it turns off. You'll see even the marquee shuts down, right? Just like the real arcade game. When you turn the real arcade game on, it initializes the screen. So if I push the button in and let it go here, or push it in, hold it in until the button back here it's a momentary switch. You have to hold it in until like it'll shut off. Let me turn it off. Okay, now let's turn it back on, and the actual arcade machine powers on, well, except for that screen right there. It powers on through an initialization sequence. Right here is exactly what the arcade machine does, as it initializes the circuit board. And then it does the screen vectoring information to make sure the horizontal and vertical lines are straight, tests the sound, and then you're in demo mode. Except the actual arcade takes a lot longer than that to reach that point. It makes me so happy. So I'm going to do a review on this coming up. But I'm going to wait till I get the other games. I'd love to see a Donkey Kong like this. And there was a Dragon's Lair that was available. It even had a little mini disc player because Dragon's Lair was run off a laser disc. I saw one for sale. It was $400. And I'm like, yeah, I didn't like Dragon's Lair that much. But when they were new, they were $150 or $180. So you got to get them when you can buy it from a site like Just Geek, because the resellers and scalpers are going to mark them up significantly. Like I said, this is on eBay now for $525. Why would you pay $525? You just go online and buy the dang thing for $155. In fact, I paid $129 for this. The price recently went up, but I cannot get over the accuracy of this cabinet. I mean, this is dead on the most accurate replication of a Galaga machine I've ever seen. And the Pac-Man is the same. The Ms. Pac-Man is the same. Even the Space Invaders, which is it's not quite as narrow. Space Invaders is a wider box. They've done all the detail. All the details precise. So I will do that in the future, a video review of these. And I just think it just makes me so happy. And this is why you have to be more specific when you really want something. Like when I was growing up, I said, I wish I could have my own arcade one day. Well, it turns out now I can. It's just 75% smaller. That's why you've got to be real specific with your wishes. Don Allen contributes $5, says, keep up the good work, Kerry. Thank you, Don. Eric Patterson with $5 says, hey, Kerry, here's a little something for the channel. Thank you, Eric. Michael contributes $7.99 Australian. Says, Kerry, would you review some other CPU coolers like Deep Cool and ID cooling products? I've tried Deep Cool's Castle all-in-one, and I'm pretty impressed. Michael, I don't really have much desire to turn my customers into guinea pigs. When I do these giveaways to people, I will put testing coolers on those. But those are coolers that companies, for the most part, have sent me for free. I'm not going to go spend my hard-earned money to turn around and just give it away unless I really believe that the product is promising. I'm not going to do it based on a viewer's suggestion. Now, I've had viewers like Ryan G in Nevada, send me stuff they wanted me to review. He sent me the Leon Lee case, not this Leon Lee, but the one I did a couple weeks ago with Mitch with the whole light up front. Ryan has sent me Bluetooth speakers, other items that were on my production wish list that he wanted to see me review. Jason had sent me that Mesh 410 because he wanted to see me review it. So if you want to see me review something, either the company has to send it to me or you have to send it to me. And even then, it could be months before I have time to get around to it. Yeah, because every viewer wants me to review what they have, and everybody's got something different. And these videos cost a lot of money to make. I can't pay my electric bill and my phone bill and my internet bill making free videos like a DJ playing music, right? I mean, the DJ's not making the music, it's already made, he just hits play. So there's a lot that goes into making these videos. It gets quite expensive, and having the part, you know, a $50 cooler is nothing compared to what the cost of the video is. So I basically triage or prioritize the reviews based on a couple of factors. One is if a company is working with me directly versus just a viewer sending me something. And another, of course, is if I think the product is going to fulfill a need that I have, I will push it to the top because I need to find a solution, and it's a possible solution, and I need to know as soon as possible. So there's reasons why videos get pushed ahead with a priority or an urgency over other videos where somebody says, hey, maybe you could try out my keyboard. Okay, you know, when I have time, you know, I'll try out the keyboard. It's like the Bluetooth speaker review. I haven't had time to do it. It's not a high priority for me, but it is on the to-do list. So if I did a review of everything people wanted me to review, there would need to be like 100 of me, and I'd have to release about 6 videos a day for about 4 years if it would ever end. So for that reason, generally speaking, that's just not how it works. If a product is something everybody's talking about, that might be an exception. But the fact that you have a specific product in a field of hundreds of variants, I don't see any reason to try one over the other. And again, unless those circumstances exist, and it's just because I'm one person and I have to pick and choose. I have no shortage of video ideas. I don't want to just do reviews. I don't want to just do interviews. I don't just want to do upgrades. I don't just want to do builds. So keep that in mind too. If I had everybody sending me products to review, then suddenly I'm nothing more than a review channel, and I don't want that. So that's why I'll do a couple reviews, and I'll wait a while before I do any more, and then things could go 10 or 12 months before the product sent for review gets reviewed. So, sorry, I'm reading. You guys are funny. Some funny comments in the chat room. And thank you, Eric. Thank you for the contribution to the channel, and I appreciate your question. Wayne says, can I upgrade my giveaway computer, which is a Core i3, to an i5 or i7 socket 1151? There wouldn't be much benefit to you doing that because the motherboard really isn't designed to handle it. My advice is if you want a Core i5 or i7, get an off-lease computer that's designed for it. What's amazing to me, and please don't take offense to this, Wayne, but if somebody is so desperate to ask for a giveaway computer, it shocks me to the core that you would risk damaging it beyond repair to try and make it better and then end up with nothing, which is exactly where you were before I sent you that computer, right? So I have a different perspective on it. My perspective is if I was in a position where I was asking for a giveaway computer, the last thing I would try and do is work on it because I have nothing to fall back on. And if you've got that kind of money to afford to buy those parts, it's just a few more dollars, honestly, to just go buy another off-lease computer that already has those parts. Though that's my opinion on it. And you're free, of course, to do what you want. It's your computer to do with whatever you want. But if you end up breaking it and you're in a position where it no longer works, you took a functioning computer, spent money to break it, I can't help you anymore. You've already been helped. There's thousands of other people waiting for me to be helped next. You've had your turn. So do what you want, but I think that it doesn't seem like a wise thing to do to me. For me, it doesn't make sense, but I wouldn't do it. Any other questions in the chat room? Looks like we've got about 276 viewers right now watching around the world. And let's see, Dan wants to know, how can I get a case badge? Go to kerryholzman.com. kerryholzman.com. Jason Wyrick says, I just got an off-lease computer from a local computer company that I used to do work for. I threw an SSD in it, and it's great. Yeah, exactly. The i5 and the i3 and the i7 on one of these off-lease computers isn't going to make any difference in your boot time because I did upgrade it to an SSD. And then you may have an issue finding a cooler that's going to fit in these desktop cases. And you may end up with overheating problems, or even just finding a cooler that fits may be a challenge. You might find the only cooler that fits is some $80 or $90 Noctua cooler. And by the time you spend all that money, you just could have bought a second computer that was already, built with an i5 or i7 that you want, that's also off lease. And you don't have any of the risk, right? Because if you order it, it doesn't work, you're under warranty. But if you take it and you break it, you go without. So there's some consequences there. It's not just a question of will the chip fit, or if it fits, will it be recognized? You got to consider how you're going to cool it. And you've got to consider that the power supply in those boxes are minimal to what they were built with, so you might have to change the power supply depending on what chip you upgrade to. And assuming the chip is recognized by the BIOS, and that you can find a cooler to fit it, and that it doesn't sound like a jet engine, it'll take you down a path potentially that might explain why you needed a computer. I don't know. I really don't know. But yeah. Joshua Robinson with $5 contribution. Hey, Josh, thank you so much. Juan the Panda says, have you ever had a problem with an in-place upgrade with Windows from Home to Pro? Well, I'm assuming you're talking about Windows 10. And if you just go to Google, go to google.com, and then type in how to upgrade Windows 10 Home to Pro, I don't know how you can get it wrong. I think they show three or four different techniques. You'll probably find 1,000 websites and YouTube videos that show you how to do it and show you multiple different ways. Again, I think there's like three very common ways. So if one doesn't work, use the next one. If that one doesn't work, typically the last one will always work. And if you just follow that, it should walk you right through it. I don't understand why anybody would upgrade from Home to Pro. That also doesn't make any sense to me. I can't imagine why anybody running Windows 10 Home would ever require Windows 10 Pro. It just seems like they're bored and have nothing else better to do. And now they've decided they want BitLocker or something stupid that they're going to lock them. It's just a matter of time. These are the people, when I get the call, I've lost my BitLocker password. There's a high percentage of those people that used to have Windows 10 Home and decided to go to Pro so they could eventually lock themselves out of their own computer, and there's nothing I can do to help you. I can't imagine any viable reason to upgrade from Windows 10 Home to Pro. I think it's a complete waste of time. That's my opinion. There's a reason why your computer came with Windows 10 Home. There's a reason why it's meeting your needs. I can't imagine that same computer is now going to log into a domain server. Seems unlikely. In BitLocker, it's just foolishness in my opinion, because if a business requires BitLocker, you would have been sold Windows 10 Pro. I don't know what you think you're getting with Windows 10 Pro. Maybe it just makes you feel better. I don't know. I'm just using my imagination. I could be running Windows 10 Home. I would never miss the quote-unquote features of Windows 10 Pro because I never have used them, nor have any of my clients. Just looking through the chat room to see if there's other questions I can answer for you guys. There's Luke Greenia joining us from Vermont. So tomorrow's build will be, I think, using another Musatex case. And one of the reasons I've not sent you your computer yet, Luke, is I want to set them side by side. I also haven't had time to even touch it. So all the cable management still needs to be done. So on the plus side, I haven't forgotten about you. And on the downside, I'm so buried in work. It just remains on the to-do list. That's why I always tell people, if I say you're getting a computer, expect to wait a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks before I can ship it, because I'm juggling tasks with interviews, reviews, and then all my clients are now returning to the office, and I have been buried in local work here. And that's why the last 2 weeks I've not been able to do many live videos. I have been pretty much burning the midnight oil from, the time I wake up until late at night, trying to get all of my local clients set up. Kids at Hope's returning to their offices, my lawyer's office, they're all returning to their offices, and they just expanded their office. They've been working on it for 2 years with seemingly no opening date and not working at any sort of urgent pace. And now suddenly they want everybody in the office last Monday in the new office. So I had to drop everything. And then they had a printer problem. They wanted me to look at it. I don't normally work on printers, but this one was so easy. I picked the printer up, and that's another video I want to make to show you a very common problem with printers. So I've got that to do. And in this customer, sometimes it's just easier to give the customer what they want, even though what they want may be a bit old and obsolete in the case of printers. This office that I have as a client doesn't have the same printer twice. Everybody's got their own printer, and every printer is a different make and model. Or there's a couple of HPs, but no two are the same. And it makes supporting them very difficult. And they will sometimes go out of, where there won't be any driver updates, and they have to replace the printer because, it just doesn't work in Windows 10, or it doesn't work on the network, or whatever this problem is. So they have this HP, it's like an M1519. It's like a fax machine. It's a laser printer fax machine. And the reason the employee loves it so much is the envelope feeder on it doesn't require any manual intervention. You could put a stack of envelopes in it in one of the trays, and when you go to print an envelope, it auto selects that tray and auto feeds the envelope. On most modern printers, you have to get up out of your chair, put the envelope in, and then push the button to tell the printer the envelope's ready, and then the printer will print it. And if you've got to do 10 envelopes, you got to do that 10 times. So they love this old HP printer. What did it say? It's an M1319F. It's got like a phone that hangs on the side. We can take the phone off. They don't use it as a fax machine. But it's a laser printer. It's got a toner cartridge. It doesn't have a scanner, but it's got that envelope feeder that auto selects itself when you're printing an envelope. And they nor I have been able to find a printer that nice today that does that. Now, if you know of a printer that prints envelopes without you having to get out of your chair and tell the printer, let me take the paper out of here, let me resize the thing, the can't think of the name, that aligns the paper. You got to squeeze that down so it keeps the paper straight. You know what I'm talking about? So you take it from 8.5 by 11, or what do they call it, A3, A4 paper. You put it to an envelope size, and then you push the button to let the printer know you're ready, and then the printer prints your envelope. On an office, when you're printing 10, 20, 30 envelopes, this is tedious. So the idea to be able to stack up some envelopes and still have your 8.5 by 11 paper in the next tray, and the printer just auto selects the proper tray and prints it. If you know of a printer that does that, please let me know. In the meantime, they love this printer. They used to have several of them. They've died one by one, and they had one left, and it failed. And I said, let me take a look at it. And I was able to fix it. I'll make a video, and I'll show you what happened and how to fix it. It's real easy. In fact, I bet a lot of people have thrown out their printers over something as simple as this. So you've got that to look forward to when I make that video. In the meantime, I went on eBay, and I found some of these printers used, same model, for, with shipping. They're under $200 with sales tax and shipping. Something this big, it's a laser printer, it's going to cost $50 minimum to ship it. So, if you pay $100 for it, plus 50 in shipping, plus tax, you're like $175. So I ended up ordering 3 of those for them, so they'll have 4 now. And that's going to make my life easier because they'll have the same, many of the employees will have the same printer using the same driver, which, by the way, loads automatically in Windows 10. You don't have to go to HP's site and download their bloatware. Now look, I'm sure I could find some new printer for the client and teach them how to use it, but in their heart, at least for this one employee who's been with the company since I've been with the company, they just love this printer. There's an emotional attachment to it. It's been reliable all these years, and despite the fact they're not made anymore, if they were made today, they'd be buying more of them. So rather than fight with the customer and try and get them to say, look, let's get with the times here. In this case, I kind of agree with the customer. The older printers were better. You know, they were lower maintenance. The toner cartridge on it lasts forever. The print quality is deeper. Like some of these new printers, they print so lightly. Even when you go into the software and say print it darker, it's still not dark enough. That's a problem I've got with the printer that I have here at Studio B, is the print is too light. And I have set all the settings to print normally, not as they have a word for it, like a preview print or something where it doesn't use a lot of toner. So I've got all that turned off and it's still not dark enough. And of course, when I print an envelope, I have to take the paper out, put the envelope in, adjust the alignment levers or whatever they're called, push and tell the printer, okay, I'm ready to print by hitting the okay button. And then it finally feeds the envelope in, and then I can put my 8.5 by 11 paper back in it and line it back up again. It's a pain in the butt. So I'm practically thinking of ordering one of these old HP, again, I got to look at it. What is it? M1319F. It's an MFP. MFP is a multi-function printer, MFP. And I say it's even got a little phone that hangs on the side of it, which is the dumbest thing I've ever seen, because it's a fax machine too, but nobody wants it for that anymore. So we could just take the phone receiver, throw that in the trash. We don't need that. And I believe it's got an Ethernet jack. Yeah, it's got an Ethernet jack and a USB cable. So you can network it, or you can just connect it to a computer directly. And Windows 10 loads the driver for it automatically. So you know, for probably an average of $200 a piece to buy some refurbished units or used units online, I think that's going to make this customer, I'm going to be their new hero. I can't believe you found these. You know, it's like an old friend. So I'm excited to do that for them. But now I'm thinking about my needs, and I'm like, you know, I'd kind of like a printer that does that too. So if you know of one that has a separate paper tray for envelopes and can auto-select that without any user intervention, please share that info with me. I'd like to look at it, because it just seems to be the older printers that supported that. And we all know those old HP laser jets are like tanks. HP used to make one heck of a laser printer. Ghost Shadow says he's got a Canon color image class. Well, that's an inkjet printer. So I'm looking for a laser printer that uses toner that will all of these printers will auto select trays, every one of them, but not envelopes. That's just it. So just to specify, not an inkjet. We can't use an inkjet printer for a number of reasons. It's got to be toner. It's got to be a laser printer. And I need to have a laser printer because I don't print very often, and my toner will dry up and clog. Not my toner, my ink will dry up and clog if I owned an inkjet printer. So I can't use an inkjet printer. I will never be able to use the ink before it clogs up and dries up, especially here in the desert. Toner cartridge, on the other hand, on a laser printer can last me 3 years. So maintenance is lower, it's less messy, they're faster, and they're generally quieter. You don't hear the head moving back and forth. Yeah, it drives me crazy. So if you know of a laser printer that can auto feed envelopes without any user intervention in a separate tray, I'd love to hear about it. I appreciate it. Jason says, I wonder if it was the paper feed. Well, you'll find out, Jason. Just stay tuned. I'll get into that when the time is right. Peter Buston contributes £5. He says, I love your shows here in the UK. God bless. Hey, thank you, Peter. God bless back at you. Thank you for supporting the show. I appreciate that. I'm continuing to scan through the comments to see if there's any other questions. If there's no other questions, we'll probably wrap it up. We've got about 280 folks watching right now. And of course, if I can address any questions for you, I'll do my best to provide you an honest and direct answer. Ghost Shadow contributes $2, says the color image class MF8580 CDW is a laser printer. Well, if it's a color laser, then it's going to have 4 toner cartridges. It's going to have black, cyan, magenta, and yellow. That makes it very expensive, and it requires an inventory of toner in an office, which is not practical. So when I say laser printer, you got to remember, I've been in the business since before laser printers were invented, or at least for home. And there was no such thing as a color laser. Now, I used to have a color laser about 12 or 13 years ago. 10 years ago. Somewhere in there, 10 to 12 years ago. And, you'd run out of one color toner. Typically one color got used more than the others. It was just a pain in the butt. So we only want, also for size, in the color lasers are larger. They're physically larger because they have all those other toners. We want 1 toner cartridge, black and white laser printer. Remember, this is for office use. This is for a lawyer's office. We're not sending clients photographs. And furthermore, for my use here, running my business, when I send out invoices to my clients, they don't have to be in color. Do you understand? They just need to say, here's who the invoice is from, here's the work that was done, this details the job and the amount due and when it's due and who to make the check out to. I don't need that in color. We want to reduce the complexity, increase the speed, and lower the maintenance cost. So we're looking for a black and white laser printer that can auto feed envelopes without having to switch the paper out and without having to manually intervene. So what I'm talking about is the HP LaserJet M1319F. I'm looking for the modern equivalent of that, and everything you guys have mentioned is not that. So either you're not understanding me or I'm not understanding you, but it appears to me that if I don't clarify all these details, even though I already said everything about this printer I liked, you guys apparently didn't consider that. I appreciate the suggestions, but that's not what I'm looking for. And I guess I have to talk more and explain every little nuance and detail. Because if I say I want something that's similar to this other thing and the other thing isn't color, then why are you offering me color? That my brain has a hard time understanding that. But I appreciate your intent is there. Michael Dane, there he is, contributes $10. He has here's for your Gatorade fund. Right on, Michael. Thank you. You're the man. So Master Singleton presents us with a Brother compact monochrome laser printer. And I don't believe that one will auto-select the envelopes. I believe it will hold the envelopes, but it will not auto-select them. At least that was my experience with one of the previous, I don't know which model Brother printer it was. We've had some issues with Brother printer drivers. We have not been a fan of them, but perhaps that model does auto feed, and if it does, certainly it's something we'll look into. Have you heard of the professional laptop battery analyzer? Yes, I've heard of it. I think it's a complete waste of money. Would you like to spend $200 to determine if your $50 battery is good or bad? It doesn't make any sense to me. If you brought your battery into me and I tested it, I'd have to charge you for testing it. Whatever you paid could have gone towards the price of a new battery. I don't understand this. We live in a disposable culture where things are, at least here in America, cheaper to replace than fix in most cases. And these tools that diagnose and analyze, you're making an assumption that they always diagnose everything correctly. I've seen batteries where you put them on a tester and the tester says they're good, but the battery doesn't work, especially car batteries. I've taken car batteries into the auto parts store and they'll say, well, this battery's good. I'm like, it's not good. They're like, oh, well, the tester says it's good. And if the tester says it's good, we won't warranty it. I go, then put it in my car and start my car. And we go out to the car and of course they won't put it in, but I'll put it in. Okay, start my car. And then they'll say something sometimes like, well, there's something wrong with the car. Go get me just let me borrow one of your other batteries. Just let me borrow, just get the same battery and let's just put it in. He puts the same battery in, vroom, car starts right up. Are you going to warranty the battery? Yes, I'm going to warranty the battery. Thank you. It's so maddening to me when people believe a machine over reality. If somebody looks at their computer to see what the weather is instead of looking out the window, and they just believe what's on the screen without double checking it, without verifying it, says it's cloudy and rainy outside, and you look out the window, if you bothered to look out the window, you'd see it was sunny and clear skies sometimes. But a lot of people don't bother. They just go, well, that's what it says, so that's what it must be. Problem with technology is it can only tell you what somebody else has told it, right? So if there was an error either in the data entry or in your request where you thought you were asking for today's weather, but you got last week's weather and you don't realize your mistake, or some hacker is playing games, it's so easy to look out the window. I don't understand this at all. It doesn't make sense to me. You'd have to have a lot of batteries, like a huge multi-$1,000s worth of batteries to justify the cost of the battery tester. And you'd still have to know that a certain percentage of what that battery tester says is good or bad is going to be inaccurate. So, yeah. I would not personally recommend any sort of battery tester. Here's how you test a battery. Well, let me rephrase. Here's how I test a battery. I charge it, and then I use it, and then I see how long it'll last until I have to charge it again. And I will let it fully deplete, at least with a lithium-ion battery, let it fully deplete and fully charge up 3 times. And after the third complete drain and recharge, if I'm not getting the battery life I used to get, it's time to buy a new battery. This costs me nothing, no special software, no special hardware. It's called common sense and reality, and I use my brain as my diagnostic tool. I'm all for, making my job easier, but not at a cost of accuracy. And certainly not at the financial cost on top of the loss of accuracy. So that's how I test batteries. Now, if I was in the battery business and I was testing 30, 40 batteries a day, that's probably not practical to scale up, and maybe a tool like that is close enough to just help people as quickly as possible and move things. But for most of us, we have 1 or 2 laptops maybe. Some of these laptops don't have replaceable batteries. Most cell phones and tablets don't have replaceable batteries. And so I'm not exactly sure where this is very useful. But that's my answer to your question. I do try to stick to practical common sense. There's this printer problem I'm going to show you next week says there's a paper jam when there is no paper jam. There is no paper jam. So why does it say there's a paper jam when there's no paper jam? You can look inside and out from every angle. You can tear the whole printer down and put it all back together again. There is no paper jam. So the diagnostic is wrong. What the printer is telling you is wrong. How do you fix that? How do you fix a ghost problem? The printer will not function. It says you have to clear the paper jam if you want to be able to print. And there is no paper jam. What do? You just keep looking for a paper jam because that's what it says? You'll never fix the problem. There's no paper there. You're like, it's got to be here somewhere. It says there's a jam. There isn't. There is not a paper jam. That's the problem with self-diagnostic stuff like that. It doesn't really understand. It's not written or designed well enough to actually be useful. It won't even tell you where the paper jam is. Is the paper jam at the feed? Is the paper jam? A laser printer has 5 stages, and there are typically a couple of sensors. Which sensor is triggering the paper jam? Maybe there's a problem with the sensor, right? But there's several sensors on most laser printers. Which one is it? How can you tell? It's maddening. So the whole paper jam thing it's a lie, and it sends you down a path of diagnostic that is completely wrong. It's what you can see with your own eyes and what you can use your brain for. That's the proper diagnostic. In my opinion, I've been doing this for 30 years, and I know when something's broken and it's telling you why it's broken, don't believe it. Most of the time, it can't tell you why it's broken because it's broken. If it knew what was wrong, it could detail exactly what the fix is and potentially fix itself. So we have the technology to do this, by the way. HP could tell us which sensor is triggering the sensing paper. But they don't do that. HP wants you to go buy another printer. They don't want you to fix the one you've got. When it's out of warranty, they don't want to encourage you fixing it. Absolutely not. HP was building printers with scanners that still used SMB 1.0 just 5 years ago. 5 or 6 years ago. And yet SMB 1.0 was disabled by Windows 10 1709 because it's a technology from the 90s. They want you to use something more secure, SMB 2 or 3. So you have this perfectly fine printer you can't use anymore unless you disable your security protection like a fool. In my opinion, you'd be a fool. There's a reason why that SMB1 is disabled. And for you to re-enable it again, it's just a matter of time before you're another identity victim. In fact, you might be an identity victim now and you just don't even know it. But hey, at least you didn't have to buy another printer. HP does that, right? They put an SMB 1.0 on a printer that was fairly modern, knowing damn well that was going to be closed sooner rather than later. And when it did, you're just going to have to buy a new printer. That's American business for you. And what does a consumer know when they buy a printer? They're going to say, "Oh, is this SMB1 or is it?" So now you can't scan your images from your scanner on your, these printers that have the scanners. You want to scan it and send it to the network share? Won't do it unless you want to make your network completely insecure and re-enable SMB1. Go right ahead. It's your identity. It's your stuff. I don't care what happens to it. I think you're a fool to do it. But hey, you just keep going that way until it hits the fan. And when it hits the fan, you'll say, I understand what Kerry was talking about now. It's the same thing goes around and around. It's not going to happen to me. Hasn't happened yet. Never happened to me. Okay, I guess it never will then. All those other people are just fools, but not you. You're different. It'll catch up to you. And a lot of the exploits that hackers take advantage of are all automated. So they're pinging internet sources. Thousands of sources a second are pinged automatically. It'll happen in less than a blink of an eye, and it's done. So some people are just going to be victims to learn, and other people will be proactive. And either way, it makes no impact on my life. I just want you to know. I don't know what else to do. I don't know how else I can convey the importance of this. And some people are just going to roll their eyes and think I'm exaggerating. Okay. I did all I could do. Imagine you're in my shoes. But remember, I'm only hearing from victims. Nobody's calling me that's not a victim. They're calling me when they become victims. And until that point, they were never a victim before. This is the first time. And it's got me very busy. So you can either take my advice and prevent that from occurring, or you can continue to roll the dice, which in my opinion, it's just a matter of time. And then you can get in line behind everybody else if you're contacting me. It is, it's frustrating sometimes to try to help people and they're like, no, I don't need your help. And then they just walk right in front of a car. You're like, you're going to get hit by the car. No, I'm not. Slam. Okay. So where are we at? A little shy of 2 hours. Any last questions I can answer? Like I said, I'm going to give you honest answers. They may not be the answers you want to hear, but as a professional with liability and accountability, I'm going to give you the same answers clients pay me for. Here's Michael Shaw. Hey, Michael, I haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you. Red Knight joins us from the UK. Will I be a fool tomorrow for my Friday show? I do like to have fun on Fridays. I try to take some of the seriousness away, especially when the builds I'm doing on Fridays are enthusiast builds. They don't really matter. They're just kind of goofball builds for the most part. Just stuff I'm doing for fun. So I hope to take away most of the serious stuff on Fridays to have fun. That's why I bring Mitch on Fridays to ensure the hilarity. Quacky Duck says, do you have any advice for a new IT tech? Well, I'm assuming you're doing what you love, right? And just keep doing what you love and things will fall into place. 191/7 says, hello, long time no see, greetings from Croatia. Have you tried the bread recipe with cocoa powder? I've been so busy. There's been a couple days last week I didn't eat. I think I had a handful of Doritos or something. So putting anything together that's requiring a recipe, I've not had time to do that for quite a few months now. I am, from the moment I wake up until I go to bed, I'm working. I'm either working on deals with interviews, sponsorships, YouTube channel administration, thumbnails, keywords and tags, returning emails, Facebook messages, updating and checking on my Twitter feed. And then on top of that, clients call me for support on the phone a lot with a lot of different clients. Sometimes I have to remote in and fix those problems immediately, which interrupts whatever I'm doing. Other times I have to make plans to go to the client's site, which means I won't get any work done while I'm in the car driving to the clients. While I'm at that client's, I'm doing just the work for them, and then back in the drive. There was a day last week, I finished at the client's at 11:30 at night. I stopped at a Denny's and I got bacon and eggs and a glass of milk. It was a weird mood. 11:30 at night by myself. I said, give me 4 strips of bacon, 4 eggs scrambled, no cheese, and 2 pieces of sourdough toast. And I was shaking because I hadn't eaten the whole day and I was just busy. I'm like, the sooner I get done, the sooner I can go eat. So I left the clients. Denny's was still open that late at night. They served me really quick too, which was impressive. I shoveled it down because I was starving and I'm like, enjoy your food, Carrie. But I was so sort of hyped up and shaky. And then I got back in the car and drove home. And then I think I watched about a half an hour of television and then I went to bed and I started the whole thing up the next day. So when I tell you things are really busy, I'm not exaggerating. It's really hectic here. So yeah, there's no time for me to put together a bread recipe. But maybe, hopefully sooner rather than later, I do enjoy cooking, and I would very much love to have the time to just kind of relax and not feel so overwhelmed. But I still have people waiting on me. I still have people waiting for computers because I am still that backed up. Stealth Mode said the battery died in my laptop exactly as I hit the send button. Just in case and just because. He contributes $5. All right, Stealth Mode, thank you. Murphy's Law is alive and well, right? Angel Eyes contributes $5. Said, here's to the channel and hello, everyone. Hey, Angel, thanks for your contribution. Good to see you here. I appreciate my friends in blue, keeping the chat room civil as always. It's nice to be so famous and popular that people think it means something to join the chat room to gain attention. That means a lot to me. What I wouldn't have given to have anybody join a chat room when I started this YouTube channel and had 0 viewers. And now I have enough viewers to be so popular that people are so desperate for attention, they come to what I have built from nothing just just to get some kind of weird thrill from getting a little speck of my attention. It's weird. It's weird. It's kind of flattering. People are desperate for my attention. When, like I said, when I started this YouTube channel, nobody could care less if they had my attention or not. I'd say that's progress. So if there's any other tech questions out there I can help you with, I'm certainly happy to help you out. G. Wisen says, was there Windows 10 updates tonight? Windows gets updated the second Tuesday of every month. Can you tell me what day of the month the second Tuesday was this month? What was the second Tuesday of June? Can anybody tell me the date? That was the day that Windows updates came out. Essentially, the whole world would be impractical, right, for everybody to download all the updates from the same source on the same day they're released. So some people will get the Tuesday updates later, unless you're manually checking for them. So updates that were released yesterday, you would see today. I'm not aware of any that were released specifically today. I think you're picking them up from Tuesday probably, but there may have been some fix to an update. If there's an what we call an out of band update, that will happen if there's some urgent addendum, right, to something where the update was causing a problem. Usually Microsoft waits until the next update Tuesday, unless it's a serious thing, and then they'll do an out of band. So, does it make a difference? If you have an update available, I would suggest you download it regardless of when it came out. Again, if there's other questions, let's see where we at. We're a little over 2 hours. I'll go a little longer if there's questions. If not, we'll wrap it up for today. I will be live again, as always, Fridays at 1 o'clock. Hopefully the trolls will come back and increase my view count. Give you guys in blue something to do, you know. And hopefully I'll see all of you back here again tomorrow as we do another Musatex build. And what else do I have going on? I still have the printer repair video to show. I've got the arcade review to do. I ordered a Synology rack-mounted NAS and was very disappointed. Synology's quality has gone right down the toilet. I'm going to talk about that in an upcoming show next week. We're going to follow up with Luke Ford over at My Computer Works. And it's a service that offers folks limitless tech support on a 30-day basis. So for $30, $40 a month, it's a USA-based technical support. So if you have questions, you call anytime for any electronic device, pretty much phones, tablets, computers, and heck, even smart TVs they'll help you with for one low monthly rate with no contracts. And we're going to follow up with them and see how they're doing, right? See what the viewers who have tested the service think of the service and what their feedback is. And we'll hear from actual viewers what they thought about the service. So that's coming up, maybe not next week, but the week after that, I think. And gosh, there's so much going on, it's hard for me to keep it all straight. Yeah. Okay. My thanks to everybody who has contributed during today's broadcast. I appreciate your support and contributions. Paul says, is it true you get more benefits with Pro than versus Home? I don't know what that question means. I don't know what benefits are. So I'd say no. If you have to ask that question, then there's nothing Windows 10 Pro is going to offer you that you would need, right? If you've been going on with Windows 10 Home this whole time and you feel like you might be missing out on something other people have, you're not. Those people have that for reasons that you don't have. You don't have a reason to have it. If you have to ask that question, then you don't have a reason to have it. But it's your money. Don't let me stop you. If you want to buy it, go for it. I mean, if you need a car with 600 horsepower I don't know anybody that needs a car with 600 horsepower. That's something you just want. If you want it, that's a valid reason, but you don't need it. So most people who have Windows 10 Home who upgrade to Pro are doing so for nonsense reasons, not for actual practical reasons. While some people do have practical reasons, most do not. They're just doing it because they can, because they feel like they might be missing out. But they're not going to see any benefit to it. It doesn't work any different for them. John Young is one of the several hundred people that reach out to me and ask me if I have parts laying around I can ship to people. So after I just sat here and talked about how overwhelmed with work I am, it's like it goes in one ear and out the other. They never heard a word I said, and they want to know if I can dig through some inventory, find an old board, package it up, take it to the post office, have it weighed, pay for the shipping, and while I'm doing all that, no work is getting done. So the short answer is the same for everybody. I don't sell used parts. I never have. I never will. I don't even know why I even answer the questions, because at that point, I've already set this all up. I've already answered it. That's a little frustrating for me when I invite questions and people ask something that's already been insinuated and inferred throughout this entire video today about how overwhelmed and swamped I am. I do not sit on used parts. I don't do it. I never have. I never will. I've never, ever sold used parts to viewers. Been doing this a long time. And then usually the people say, well, it didn't hurt to ask. Well, it did, right? Because I'm, when I'm getting messages, emails, Facebook messages, and interruptions and distractions from people that are not my customers asking me what I can do for them when, they've done nothing for me, it's like, well, did you hear me talk about how busy I am? Did you not hear any of that? Did you not hear me talk about how I don't sell used parts? I've said it I don't know how many times since I started this YouTube channel, and yet they still continue to ask. So I think I'm just going to start ignoring those particular questions from now on, because it's upsetting. It's like, all right, if they didn't hear me say it, why are they going to hear my answer, right? It's upsetting to me. But such is the life of a YouTube content creator, where you have people who are perhaps not paying full attention, or they just, come in midway through a show, they didn't hear what was said, maybe they haven't watched a show in a while, maybe they forgot, but it's I don't know, it's a little frustrating sometimes. But hey, I'm the one who asked for the questions. I only have myself to blame. All right, let's see. We got other questions here. Chevy contributes $1. Thank you, Chevy. Justin Miller with $20 says, have a good night, Uncle Kerry. Just wanted to stop by and show some support. Right on, Justin. Thank you so much. And let's see. What else? Paul Stallion with a $10 contribution says, I have built 2 PCs with Windows 10 Pro. I've seen somewhat of a difference between the two, like in RAM and when to update. Thanks for your teaching. There's no difference in RAM or when to update. So whatever you're seeing is a placebo. I have no idea what you're talking about. Michael Dane says, if you want used parts, check eBay. There you go. There you go. Sean Gallagher contributes $10. He goes, here you go. You're a good computer tech. Hey, thank you, Sean. I appreciate your support. Some people will disagree with you and tell you I'm a terrible computer tech. Thankfully, I don't work for them. Master Singleton says, is your PayPal donation link still available for me to donate to? Yes. Yeah. You can go to tech-vets.com. There's a donate button there. It's occurring to me that my default links are missing quite a few things now, like the Amazon link, the PayPal link, and the Uncle Kerry's apps links. I need to I should do that tonight while it's on my mind and update those default settings. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. Zero Core says my Windows 10 home machine updated to Windows 21H1, but my Windows 10 Pro machine has not done it yet. And I thought that was because Windows Pro waited longer on updates intentionally. No, it doesn't. The updates may be delayed because of the hardware on your machine, or just like I mentioned before, Microsoft can't submit that much data bandwidth to hundreds of millions of users simultaneously. It's not forget humanly possible. It's just not, the bandwidth doesn't exist for that. I don't know if you understand the scale of how much data is required to transmit to update every computer running Windows 10. And then of course those machines are typically all going to be unique. And I've already shown you guys how to do it manually. So all my clients run Windows 10 Pro. And I can go into one client's office and out of 10 computers, 5 will be offered the update, or 6 or 7 will be offered the update. And then the other 3 will eventually be offered the update, or I can force it. And they're all running the same Windows 10 Pro. It's all configured the same. The difference is the machines were built with different hardware. And so I suspect it's the different hardware that's causing that. It's nothing to do with Windows 10 Home or Pro. Now, when you guys want to suspect stuff, this isn't 1987 anymore. All you got to do is a little Google research. You don't have to wonder anything now. You could simply Google that and find what I just told you, repeated time and time again by trusted, reliable resources like Microsoft.com. Microsoft themselves will tell you there's no delay. It doesn't exist. If you just, for example, were to Google difference between Windows 10 Home versus Pro, and go to Microsoft's website that answers this question, and it will detail what those differences are. And in nowhere in that website detailing those minor differences does it say anything about Windows Update. And the reason it doesn't say anything about Windows Update is because there's nothing to say. It's the same. So you need to pay attention to what's being said, not what's not being said, and then imagine, I wonder why they didn't mention Windows Update. Because there was nothing to mention. That's why. So unless there is something that specifically states what you're assuming, it's completely baseless. And it's 20 seconds of typing to verify it. It's really easy. You don't have to go through life wondering and assuming anymore. If you make the effort and no results come up, that's your answer. It's your imagination. But if results come up and those results are from a trusted resource, now you know for a fact. Like I said, you don't have to wonder. What are your thoughts on Microsoft working on Windows 11? I discussed this already on Friday's show. I don't know what's going to happen on June 24th with Microsoft's announcement. I suspect there is no Windows 11. I suspect it's just, they're going to rebrand Windows. I think they're not going to come out with an operating system that's not been beta tested. You know what I mean? But an operating system takes years of development and beta testing, and it requires the public's assistance in beta testing, and there has been no public beta test. Then you break all the drivers and all the software, and it's a huge problem. So it's not like Microsoft is going to pop out of a cuckoo clock and go, today, cuckoo, we have today a new Windows version. No, it doesn't work like that. Doesn't work like that. So it's probably just a rebranding of the next Windows update. They're probably going to drop the 10 and just call it Windows. It's possible they call it Windows 11, but it's still Windows 10 with a different name. That's all it is. Or they might have more development tools that are enhanced for developers to make it easier to write software that's compatible and less likely to create a problem after a Windows update. And I don't think Microsoft or any company wants to put a number after a product anymore because it starts to age the product, right? So Windows 10 might have sounded like a good idea 5 or 6 years ago, And Microsoft did say that that would be the last version of Windows, that there would never be a version 11 or 12. They specifically stated that that would never, ever be another version of Windows other than Windows 10, and it would stay this way forever. Now, 6 years later, they're attempting to make some marketing hype out of nonsense, and if you just critically think about it, it doesn't make any sense. You can't announce a new operating system that nobody's ever seen or heard of that's going to break all the drivers and all the software, and it's never been tested. I mean, that's just what we call vaporware. It doesn't exist. So this is a marketing hype, and probably take advantage of an opportunity that when Windows 10 21H2 comes out, it'll just be called, I'm going to guess, they're just going to call it Windows. And they're going to rebrand it to make it feel fresh and new, because by putting a number on it, it feels older every year. It starts to feel like it's stagnating. The sort of the feeling of the consumers using it is that I'm using something old. And that's the downside of not continually updating the numbers. That's a battle they can't win. The only way you can win that is take the number off of it. And I think logically and practically speaking, that's probably what this event is about. And I think it's mostly for developers, not for consumers. It's for people writing software that it's going to impact the most. And for the home users, I don't think you're really going to see any, I don't really, the whole concept behind marketing is to get you to talk about the product for free. So the amount of time we've been talking about Microsoft, I've not been paid for it. And Microsoft marketing is doing a good job because you're buying into this nonsense. It's just nonsense. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe Microsoft is foolish enough to act as though they can just come out with an operating system that's never been tested and we're all going to be real excited about it. It seems very unlikely. It seems very unlikely. It seems like it would be doomed to fail if they did that. So I think it's just a rebranding. You know, I don't know what they'll call it, but I think that's ultimately what they're going to do. They're going to just take the next Windows update and they're going to rebrand it to whatever they want to call it. You know, Ford had some pretty bad sales of the Ford Taurus a few years ago. And so they rebranded the Ford Taurus as the Ford 500. It was the same car. All they did was change the badge. Sales did not improve. You know why? Because the car didn't improve. All they did was change the name on the car. But that's how stupid most people are. Unfortunately, and I hate to say it, people are very easily manipulated by marketing companies, and doing something so foolishly as to just, you know, peel the badge off and put a different badge on it. People in marketing know that works. And I think, and I don't have any evidence other than just common sense, that's all Microsoft is doing. It's still going to be the same Windows, just putting a different badge on it. So the Ford 500 didn't sell well, didn't fix the sales problem. So they reverted back to calling it a Ford Taurus again. And then when they fixed the problems with the car, sales went back up. It's funny how that works. True story. Google it. Tom says, Carrie, are we going to finish the upgrade? So Tom, I mentioned earlier that I ordered the motherboard and the chip from Amazon, and it'll be here on Wednesday. And that I thought I'd just go ahead and pull the old parts out so we could take a look at what I installed, because I can't remember what I installed. And I'm going to have to wipe all the dust out of it. And then sometime before 10 p.m. on Wednesday, I expect my CPU and motherboard to arrive. And then once I have those parts, I can do the upgrade. But I already said that earlier. I guess maybe you didn't hear me. Bill Brulette says, Carrie, I sent you $5 via PayPal. Hey, Bill, thank you for that. I appreciate it. I appreciate you supporting the show. Carrie, what are your thoughts on Microsoft introducing the winget package manager that mirrors the Linux Git command? I am excited for it. Yeah, I have used Windows and DOS and Microsoft products since the dawn of Microsoft products. And I've never once said, gee, I wish I had the get command. That seems to be some way to appeal to Linux users. It has no appeal to me. I don't see any benefit, or I can't imagine I would ever use it. You know, if you've gone 20, 30, I've gone 30 years never using that command and always being able to accomplish what I set out to accomplish, I can't imagine how that's going to be beneficial to me in any way, shape, or form. I already know how to do what I need to do without it. So if it's just enabling me to do something I'm already doing in a different way, I have no interest in learning a different way for no apparent reason other than it's because it appeases other people who use Linux who don't know how Microsoft does it. So rather than the Linux users learning from that, Microsoft is accommodating them. That's my perspective on it. I don't see any benefit to it. For the rest of us who've been using Windows and don't use Linux, it doesn't make much sense to us. It's never stopped us from doing whatever we wanted to do. There's always been a way to do it. We always did it Microsoft's way. We didn't do it Linux's way. So I don't see any harm in it. So now there'll be two ways to do it, right? I can still do it the way I do it, and Linux users can do it the way they're used to. Everybody's happy. It has no impact on me. It won't change the way I do things. It's like, I didn't just work on a computer and go, gee, I wish there was some way I could get this package for Windows. There doesn't seem to be a way. If only this was Linux. Doesn't make sense to me. I mean, it makes sense to appeal to the Linux users who are familiar with that, but it's kind of going backwards in my opinion. Jayden says, by watching your PC build videos, I managed to build my own PC. Thanks a lot, Carrie. Right on, Jayden. That's awesome. But yeah, so, and I imagine, going back to the whole Windows press conference, Microsoft press conference about Windows on June 24th, they're probably going to, I think they're changing the font and they're changing some of the aesthetics, some of the look of Windows, right? Again, we go back to the Ford Taurus being renamed the 500, and maybe we offer it in different colors with a different color interior, and maybe it has a different sound system or a different user interface, but it's the same car, right? It's just different makeup on the same pig. It's still the same pig. They put it in different clothes with different makeup. Don't let it fool you. I was trying to figure out why my view numbers are so high, because remember, YouTube pays me based on how many eyeballs are watching, right? So if somebody like creates fake accounts to jump into the chat room, they're just increasing my popularity on YouTube, which is really beneficial to me. It actually is quite helpful. They're not punishing me, they're rewarding me. They're creating a bunch of different accounts and then they're jumping into the channel, which counts as a new view, and it looks like I've got a lot more viewers than I actually have. That results in higher advertising rates. I talked about that earlier. It results in higher likelihood of YouTube recommendations because the video appears to be more popular. There are YouTube content creators that pay server farms basically to have people jump into their chat room and do what these folks are doing. But these folks don't understand they could be getting paid to do that, and they're doing it for free. So please don't be too upset at them. Continue to ban them, but understand that all they're doing is pumping me up. They're moving me up the charts on YouTube by doing that. So I don't really mind it. Carrie, you look tired, but cheer up. Your expertise is alive and well. I am tired, but I don't see any reason to say cheer up. I'm not depressed. I sometimes get a little frustrated, right, when I have to repeat something 6 or 7 times. But other than that, it's not being upset. It's just frustration. But overall, I'm I'm cheerful. Somebody should tell your face. I know. All right, here's Ryan in the chat room. Can you play any recent PC games, Carrie? Yeah, that's all I do all day. Hey, there's Ron. Hey, Ron. See Ron in the chat room there. All right, we're just almost at 2.5 hours. I think that's a good time to wrap up. Zero Core says, I noticed that you happened to comment on Timmy Joe's latest video. And I was crying watching that video because of having similar issues in the past. It was awesome seeing you reach out to him. Timmy Joe is a technician and YouTube content creator like myself. He's based in Canada. And I recently discovered him maybe a couple months ago, and I talked about it here on the channel, that anytime I find somebody who's not just an enthusiast, or if they are an enthusiast, they're doing everything, like Greg Salazar is another one. They're doing everything to a level that would be considered professional. They have my respect because to me, folks like Timmy Joe and Greg Salazar, people doing real technical work to the level of detail and the meticulous nature, these are people I would hire. I would not hire the big tech YouTubers. They goof around and do stuff that's impractical. They do stuff that's overly expensive, and it doesn't seem to serve any purpose other than filling time. So when I see somebody doing actual technical work, whether they're a professional or an enthusiast, but they're doing it to the level of professionalism that I would require from an employee, because my employers require it from me, as they have taught me when I was starting out in this business. It wasn't my idea to be that meticulous. It was, do you want to keep a job kind of a thing. And so to see Timmy Joe posted a video where he's having some personal, what's the word I want to use? He's got some challenges in his life and dealing with the balance. As you get older and you deal with stuff, when you're a kid and you got nothing going on, your mom and dad pay the bills, all the food's provided, the rent's provided, you got nothing to do all day to fill up time. Even well into college, you may just have college studies and partying and dating and, that's your life. But then as you become an adult and you're now responsible to pay your own rent, electric bill, feed yourself, pay for your car insurance, car maintenance, gas, the bills just go on and on and on and on. Cell phone, internet. You're going to watch TV, buy the TV, pay for the television service, buy the modem, buy the router, buy the computer, buy, purchase, maintain. And the more you own, the more you collect, the more work it is to maintain it. It starts life. You start a family, you have kids, things. Now you've got a job, you've got a relationship, you've got a family. As you get older, and especially right around Timmy Joe's age is when it happens for most of us, life can be overwhelming. And sometimes we find escapes and we find excuses to be functional, but have some sort of personal abuse issues with drugs or alcohol to numb the pain. People generally will do an abundance of drugs of alcohol because they're in pain. And it's sad when we, in my opinion, when we are criminalizing drug users as, criminals, when these are people that are suffering and we're criminalizing them instead of getting them the help that they need. And so what ends up happening for most of us is we think we have it all under control. I can have a few drinks or I can do some drugs and it's fine. And nobody knows, right? Nobody knows until one day, it doesn't work anymore. One of my favorite stories was Samuel L. Jackson was on 60 Minutes, and he drank a lot, and his wife was worried about it. And he says, I can drink, I can control it. You see, I go to work every day. I'm responsible. I show up on time. I know my lines. Don't tell me I can't drink. And then, he'd drink a little more. And one day his wife found him unconscious on the floor of the kitchen. And she said, "We are getting you help today." And he kind of, the way he explains it, he kind of looked up and realized where he was. He has no recollection of how he got there. And he said, "You're right. I need help now." Now he wasn't so defiant to say, "I got this," right? And so that's how it happens. And it's not a new story. It happens to a lot of people. And it does require a little, what's the word? Sacrifice of inconvenience. You may not feel well while you're detoxing. You might feel sick. You might be irritable. You might be sleepy. You may be lethargic until your body gets all of those toxins out. Some people will go back to the drug, whatever the drug is, thinking, well, maybe I shouldn't have stopped cold turkey. Maybe I should have weaned myself off of it, which is just another excuse to get more of it. And some drugs are like that. Some drugs you do want to wean off. But other drugs, the worst thing you can do is have a little bit, right? Because then those toxins take longer and your recovery is going to take longer. And so I feel for his situation. I appreciate it takes, I don't know how much you guys understand the kind of constitution that somebody has to go on camera and admit your fault, admit your struggle, admit your pain, admit your vulnerabilities to a live, to an audience, live or otherwise, to an audience. Like, there's a reason it's called Alcoholics Anonymous. Anonymous. Timmy Joe is not anonymous, and he could have kept that all off camera. Nobody would have been any the wiser. So to do what he did takes guts. It takes cojones. It takes an incredibly strong constitution to not feel shame and hide it, right? So I'm sure he feels shame. Most of us hide shame. But he did what most of us wouldn't do, and he exposed his shame. That's very admirable. That is a very strong-willed person who can do that. And what he's doing is not easy, but he's not alone. He's not doing anything millions of others have already been through. Unfortunately, these are the types of things people generally hide. They don't want people to know. People might think less of them or think they're a loser now because they let something get out of control. We can all let something get out of control. You have it under control until you don't. Everybody who's ever had an addiction had it under control until they didn't. So I think it's important that we understand why people do this, and it's generally due to sadness or pain. They're masking some pain or they're masking some sadness, and they're numbing themselves. And, look, When something is a recreational activity as an escape, I don't have a problem. I really don't have a problem. Wouldn't matter if I did, but I mean, personally, if I knew you and I knew that you'd like to have a drug of choice every now and again, I, you know, stay home and you're not going and forcing your intoxicated nonsense on the public, but you stay at home so people don't have to deal with you in that intoxicated state. It's your business. But it's sort of like it's like a pendulum. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, right? It's somewhere you can kind of find a balance, have it in the middle. Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't believe that. Alcoholics Anonymous believes that, you know, you don't have free will and you are powerless, and therefore you can never have a drink again. And most people who are successful through the program, it really works well for them, and that's great. They'll never touch another drink of alcohol, and that's fine. It's fine. Again, I don't have a problem with it. But I do believe in free will, and I do believe that you have the power to decide when you want to drink and when you don't want to drink. And if you don't believe me, then you probably shouldn't drink. Okay? That's all I'm trying to say. So in Timmy Joe's case, you know, I've never met him, obviously. I just realized who he was not too long ago. I didn't even know he wasn't making videos, right? And then he made this video and he looks terrible. His eyes are all sort of, you know, busted blood vessels in his eyes from apparently from vomiting so violently over and over and over again through this withdrawal that he's going through. And, you know, the things that don't kill us make us stronger. And every challenge that all of us have faced in our life, we've overcome it, because that's why we're still here. You won't be challenged with anything you can't overcome. And the very fact that you exist is proof of that. So Timmy's going through what Timmy needs to go through. I don't know what else to say about it. One hopes that he has the support structure to encourage him and to not judge him and to support him. And the internet is, you know, as we're experiencing in the chat room, it is filled with callous predators who they themselves have such a sad existence that their precious time here on earth is being squandered over something so meaningless. And yet their behavior will continue until such a time that they realize they won't ever get that time back. Your time on this planet, there's no do-overs. Every minute you waste is a minute less you have to do something that makes your life better. So if somebody's coming in to the chat room like they're doing tonight and they're trying to make my life worse, it's not working. But more importantly, it's not making their life any better. If whatever value of entertainment they get from it, that would be a pretty simple-minded person to be so easily entertained. Like, you know, how often would you have to do that before you got bored? Like for me, it wouldn't take me very long before I'd be like, well, this is obviously not getting anywhere. I'm not going, what do I win if I succeed? What is the goal? What's my prize? What's my reward? Nothing. And yet they will die just like the rest of us. And every minute that we spend harming other people or selfishly looking out for causing somebody distress or attempting to in some pathetic way, is time you don't get it back. If you're doing something to help somebody or you're doing something to hurt somebody, it's still spent time you'll never get back. And when you look back on your life and you look at what an idiot you used to be, that may be a very difficult thing for you to overcome later, but that won't be my problem. And on the other hand, you may not live that long, right? If that's your decision-making process, you might be somebody who's not long for this earth. And when somebody like Timmy Joe comes out and he's open and honest like that, his fear of death is a very concerning thing for me personally, because fear is false expectations appearing real, FEAR. And we're all gonna die. Whether you fear it or you don't fear it won't change that. And when it happens, you won't know. You'll never know the day and time of your death. You'll never know it. So to worry about it and to have anxiety over something that is, sometimes it's random, sometimes something happens, whether it's a disease or an accident, and everything changes in a microsecond. If worrying about it, staying up at night, and your mind can't get the thought off of not being around any longer, if that is affecting your ability to focus and to function, then you're squandering the present. You're so worried about the future, you are not in the present. Today was yesterday's tomorrow, yeah? And if all I'm doing is thinking about tomorrow and I'm never thinking about today, that doesn't postpone my death. It doesn't prevent it. So, since I know death is inevitable, and there's nothing I can do about it, it motivates me to do you wonder why I'm so busy? This is why. I need to get things done while I can do them. Because for a lot of us, before death, there's a slow degradation of our abilities. Whether it's you see me having to wear glasses now, you see I'm losing my hair. This is a natural part of the aging process. Eventually, I may become arthritic. I may not be able to have good use of my hands, and I won't be able to do this anymore, right? I could have other health-related issues, from anything from cholesterol and heart-related problems to cancer or leukemia or diabetes, or who knows what. There's lots and lots of diseases. Coronavirus, who knows? And it's information overload, in my opinion. It's too much information. When you're flooded with information, most people freeze. Paralysis through analysis. You understand? And one of the great solutions that I have found that works for me is this little guy right here. Squirrel. We need distractions to get us off of that thinking mode, to shift gears into today, be in the present. And you can't just flip a switch and make that happen. You have to practice mindfully. Every day, you have to make an effort to be self-aware and mindful, to be in the present. And if you have a support structure of people around you that can help keep you on track, on today, they see you drifting to one side, they pull you back. It's very helpful until you create new and better habits that make you a happier and more productive person. Death is still coming regardless. The only difference is, what are you doing between now and then? Worrying about death is a complete waste of time. You might as well already be dead. Death is for dead people. Being alive is for the living. When living people act like they're dead, it angers me, because what's the point of you being here? So if you're afraid of death, then you must understand how precious time is and how much you're squandering it worrying about something you can't control or change. But you know what I can control or change? Helping a customer with a computer, making sure they're happy, making sure they get a good value. Somebody's system is down, somebody's business is down, somebody's got a virus, somebody needs help, and I'm there and I've helped them, and I feel like I have a purpose. And that's fulfilling. I don't have time to think about death. And if I do start to think about death, I become, as soon as I'm self-aware of it, shifting my thinking to something else. If thinking positively requires as much energy and effort as thinking negatively, then why choose negative? Why are you making that choice? Choose differently. And it takes practice. You have to be self-aware, and as soon as you catch yourself, immediately change that thought. There was a guy online selling rubber bands to where he literally was selling rubber bands. And you put it on your wrist, and every time you have a negative thought, you snap that rubber band. And the idea was, after you've caused yourself enough pain, you'll stop doing it. But you don't have to buy this guy's band. You can go get a rubber band out of a drawer. You don't have to give this guy any money. And you can try that to see if it works for you, right? The minute you're self-aware that you're thinking negatively, you snap that band. Then you purposely think of a reason to be happy. You know, Timmy Joe's got a wife and children. He's got a lot of reasons to be happy. He knows he does, right? This is a form of depression, and there are different levels of depression. Some depression, a little cognitive behavior therapy is all you need. Other depression, psychiatrists and medication need to get involved when it's chemical imbalances and things. So I don't know Timmy Joe well enough. I don't know what he's going through, but it's very familiar to me, and the reasons behind it, I'm sure, are very different. In my case, I had to pull myself out because psychiatrists and medication weren't a thing. There was no such thing back then. Now there is. And if those medications can help, then so be it. If you're having a lot of anxiety, I know people that take Xanax or they take Klonopin for anxiety. And I also know people where those medications made them worse, right? So everybody's different. The important thing is that people are getting help. A lot of people, by keeping it secret, try and handle it themselves and eventually spiral into their own self-destruction. He's already caused self-harm, and it's affecting people who love him. It's hurting people who love him. And I don't know that he understands that. So if he's not going to do it for himself, then he should do it for others. And as long as those others are there to support and encourage him, he has no excuse to not do whatever needs to be done. And I guess what I'm saying is I don't know what that is. That's what Timmy Joe has to figure out. But I will be here all day to support him and encourage him and be his cheerleader, because I know he's, we've all been through it. Most of us have been through it. And I can't say that I've ever seen a tech YouTuber be so honest about something so personal. I wouldn't. But I know Barnacules, Nerdgasm, Jerry, he's talked a lot about his depression, suicidal thoughts, weight issues, divorce issues. Hey, this is a tech channel. This isn't a gossip channel. I'm not here to talk about my personal life. On the other hand, when somebody else who's a peer of mine, who's also a tech YouTuber, also a technician, and perhaps a generation behind me, he's probably 20 years younger than me, but still feels like we're kindred spirits, I feel it more. The empathy that I have, it feels like it's happening to a brother. Even though I've never met him, it feels like a brother. And to watch him suffer needlessly is painful for everybody who has to watch it. So the fact that he has been so open about it is a good sign. I think he's going to be okay. Because anybody strong enough to do that has probably got plenty of strength to see this through, to get through these withdrawal symptoms, clear those toxins out, and then, find that balance. Sometimes you lose a little balance. It's okay. You kind of stumble. You might even fall. But you get back up, you dust yourself off, and you just watch your step next time, right? That doesn't mean you're never going to fall again, but you won't fall for the same reason. And this is evolving. This is how we grow as individuals. And again, most of us hide that stuff. So good on Timmy Joe for being the voice of most of us who would never give that a voice, except to perhaps a very close and trusted friend or physician. Yeah, that's kind of crazy that that somebody would open themselves up to such vulnerability in a time where they're particularly vulnerable. I would understand it more if he got over it, right, went through it, and then talked about it afterwards. But to talk about it while you're doing it, it can't make it any easier if people are judging you, right? You know, because there's so many jerks on the internet. It's so easy to just let people thrive on your own depression and let them in. They might encourage it. You know, they might say, well, why don't you go kill yourself, you loser? That's not helpful. And then there's people on the internet, lots of people on the internet that find that very entertaining. So for Timmy Joe to do that, knowing what people can do to hinder his progress, it takes a very, very strong personality to do that. I've never seen anybody do that before, certainly not a tech. So I think he's going to be okay. It just needs some time. But regardless, I meant what I said on his channel. If he wants to talk to a peer, if he wants to talk to somebody else who's a tech, who's also been through something similar, different but similar, who also has the same challenges and who was also once his age about the time it happened, my phone is, no matter how busy I am, I will stop what I am doing because this is way more important than any amount of computer work I'm doing. Even though I don't personally know him, I respect the hell out of that guy, for sure. Yeah. That's amazing. All right, what's going on in the chat room? I'm sorry, if people have been asking questions, I haven't been paying attention. Let me just scroll through here. A lot of deleted messages. No, they're still doing it? All right. Ryan says it'd be nice to see a collab with Carrie and Timmy Joe. Hey, you know, if Timmy Joe is up for it, I'd love nothing more. Why would I not want to? One of the greatest, this is a little off topic. This is more like Life 101 channel stuff that I'm talking about right now. But one of my greatest accomplishments in life was facing death. Once I faced death, I stopped being afraid of it. And when I stopped being afraid of death, I now have a sense of freedom, the likes of which I can't explain to you. And the best way that you could verify what I'm talking about or see it in action was when, you know, I was swatted and had 15 squad cars, police cars. Each squad car had 1 or 2 officers in it, and they all drew their loaded weapons. Some had military assault rifles, loaded. Just a little pull of the trigger and I was going to be full of holes. And yet I had no fear. If you listen, because my microphone was on during that discussion with an emotionally charged law enforcement officer who was being unreasonable and refused to accept reality, I wasn't panicked by all the officers who at any minute could squeeze the trigger, even by mistake, and put a bullet through me, because I didn't care. You understand? I did not care. If you're going to put a bullet in me, put a bullet in me. I don't care. But what you will not get from me is fear. You will never get that because I just don't care. I have seen the face of death on 2 occasions, and I'll be happy to look at it again. I can tell you that it is a wonderful sense of freedom. Once you lose the fear of death, life, the whole perspective of life, at least for me, suddenly changed. Now I can be more bold. I don't have to be so timid. I don't have to worry about other people's approvals. I don't have to worry. Like, if death is the worst possible thing that can happen to you, and you have faced that, what's left? What else is there? There's nothing worse than death. So once you're not afraid of that, you're not afraid of anything. And when you're not afraid of anything, the world is your oyster. But it's not something you hand to somebody. I can't go, here, this will get rid of your fear. It's something you have to do. It's a process. Or maybe you don't have to do it. Maybe you don't do it and you live your life in fear. That's fine. If that's for you, that's for you. I was pretty miserable. Very depressed. And it was due to fear. And once, death was faced, facing it again was no big deal. It really wasn't. So the first time I faced it, the reality sets in, right? And you're like, I can't believe this is happening. I must be dreaming. I'm going to wake up from all of this, right? But then after you survive that, anytime death makes another visit, it's like, oh, it's you again. What do you want? You know what I mean? At least for me. And it's such a relieving sense of freedom that I never experienced in my life. Nobody ever taught it to me in school. There's no books I ever read about it. It's something I personally experienced that is a part of who I am today. And I can assure you that having loaded firearms pointed at you by emotionally charged, irrational people, if that doesn't shake you to your very core, I don't know anybody in my life that would have done what I did. People think I'm nuts. They think I'm crazy. They go, how in the world could you be so level-headed and try to turn this into a lesson for the police officers when you had loaded weapons pointed at you and you could have died at any minute? How can you remain so clear-headed and calm? Because I faced death before and I have this freedom now. I cannot be scared. It's not possible because I've already faced death and there's nothing scarier than that. That's it. That's all there is. Once you overcome that, everything else is nothing. I just can't tell you how to get there. But I can tell you it's worth the trip. That's all I can say. For me, it was. For me, it was. I can't say it's for you. For me, best thing that ever happened to me. Yeah. I know at least 3 occasions off the top of my head where I faced death. And each time was easier than the time before. And now I just don't care. I just don't care. I'll die when I die. You understand? Whether I fear it or not won't change what's going to happen. But what I can change today, because I'm not dead today. And I can do work today. I could be dead tomorrow. I'm not worried about tomorrow. I'll worry about tomorrow. Yeah, so I really feel for Timmy Joe, and I wish I knew him better. I wish that we were friends and that I was somebody he could have or could turn to. So I know when I made that comment on his YouTube channel, he's probably never going to call me. He doesn't know who I am. But I can make the offer. The rest is on him. Ron says I can't die before him. He needs me here. Ron, it won't be my problem, man. If I die before you, that's your problem. I get, it's not a choice. It's not like I'm making a decision. You want you take cuts in line? I'm just saying. Acceptance. The sooner you get to acceptance, you get rid of denial, get rid of anger, get right to acceptance. The sooner you get there, the better. That's my opinion. I try to get to acceptance as quickly as possible. No matter what information anybody has for me, no matter how shocking it might be, I don't care. Just give me the information, I'll process it and deal with it. Almost like a machine, but also as a survival tactic and a coping mechanism, because you still have, life is for the living, right? So regardless, well, there's time for mourning and there's time for sadness, there's still work that has to be done. You're still alive and you still have to pay the bills, and life will go on. And when I go, life will still go on for everybody else. So what? That's how it works, right? So what? You have no control over it. Accept it and enjoy today and appreciate the value of the time that you have here. Make the most of it, but don't get too exhausted. I was taught early on that you should live every day as though it's your last, because one day you'll be right. The problem with living every day as though it were your last is it's very exhausting. I am tired all the time. So maybe, take a couple days off. So I'm saying. Nobody ever mentioned how exhausting it is to live every day as though it's your last. So yeah, you need to take a couple days off from that. Ryan says, Timmy Joe heart reacted to your comment, so you never know. Yeah, I saw that he did that. Yeah, I mean, I saw that he acknowledged what I said, but it doesn't mean he knows who I am, right? And it doesn't even mean that even if he called that I would be helpful. But I would certainly, like I said, I would stop whatever I was doing, because to me, if there was an email or a phone call from him, that would be of utmost urgency for me. Much more so than anything else I'm doing. And if customers have to wait, this is bigger than that, and they'll have to wait. You understand? And I don't make that offer to just anybody. I can't. It's not my job. It's not my responsibility, and I don't know most of these people. But I feel like I feel very like we're kindred spirits, he and I. So, regardless, I have no doubt he's going to get through this. He's going to be a stronger person because of it. If there's something I can do to help, I put the offer out there. Sometimes the best way to help is to stay out of the way. And I'm okay with that too, right? Everybody's got their way and it's all fine. So Chevy contributed another $1. Thank you, Chevy. Thanks for your continual contributions. I appreciate that very much. And, this talk of Timmy Joe has kept me on an additional half an hour, which, it's great. I enjoy hanging out with you guys. And I didn't really have anything else to talk about. And since you brought that up, it sort of brought back all of the philosophy and Life 101 stuff that I have had to learn the long way, the hard way, just to survive. And and not enough to survive, but to thrive. And, what works for me may not work for other people. I was in a unique situation, but not alone. I mean, other people have been in my situation, but not everybody. And a lot of the symptoms that I suffered are very similar to the symptoms he's suffering, but for other reasons. So my advice may not be helpful to him, but I'm certainly supportive, and I'm certainly sympathetic to his need, and I understand he's in pain. And his pain is what's caused this whole thing, right? Anytime you see somebody hooked on some kind of drug, they are numbing themselves from trauma. It's an escape from trauma. It's a coping mechanism. They're not criminals. They're people suffering from trauma. And they're not getting the help they need. And so they numb it with drugs and alcohol. That's how that happens. And in doing so, they may not realize it, but they're causing trauma to the people in their lives, which may cause them to drink or use drugs. So it's a downward thing, and it needs to be corrected sooner rather than later. It can destroy families and relationships and lives if it's allowed to go out of control, and if it doesn't, if you're somebody who's not in a supportive family or in a supportive place. That's why I said going on YouTube, where so many people are not supportive and are so unkind. Whew, I don't know that that was a good idea, but my gosh, the amount of guts it takes to do that. I mean, I think I'm a pretty gutsy guy, but I don't know that I would do that. Yeah. So Timmy Joe has my utmost respect, both as a YouTube content creator, as a technician, and as an honest and genuine human being. What else is there? Okay. So I think we'll wrap it up with that. If you've not seen any of Timmy Joe's videos, if you like my content, if you like the genuine nature of what I do and the real work that I do for real customers where I have real liability, look at Timmy Joe's channel. Check it out. And also, if you like that, check out Greg Salazar. I think Greg Salazar is doing some amazing work on YouTube and as a technician, both. And these guys deserve way more subscribers and way more views than they're getting. And there's probably more out there I haven't found yet. But I recently found both of these guys, Greg Salazar, you just search his name in YouTube. And of course, Timmy Joe, search his name in YouTube. I think they each have hundreds and hundreds of videos. They're not new. They've been doing this a while. And that's why I say they deserve more viewers than they have, because the quality of the work they're doing is far superior, in my opinion, than other more popular tech channels, because they're actually doing real work. They're actually doing real work on camera, and they're very good at it. Like, if I'm telling you they're good at it, that's at my, I don't want to see them do their best. I want to see them do my best. Timmy Joe and Greg Salazar are better than I am. They're better on camera, and I think they might be better technicians, but I don't want to say that out loud. Did I say it out loud? That's how good they are, in my opinion. So if you've not checked them out, if you like my channel, I think you're going to like their channel even better. It doesn't mean you have to leave my channel. We're not mutually exclusive. But yeah, highest praise. And I've talked about Tech Deals in the past. I think Tech Deals, Tech and Rogue are doing some amazing work over there, along with Muse and I can't think of all the little handles they use. I like that Greg Salazar is using his real name. I don't know Timmy Joe's real name, but I suspect Tim and Joe are in it, or at least one of those is in it. And when you hide behind a name on the internet, I understand why people do it, because of the harassment that they can endure as you get more popular. I know it firsthand. It's sort of like, gee, I wish somebody would watch more of my videos. I wish my videos were more, and then you get more popular, and then you get harassment that you never got. So be careful what you wish for. But if I had an issue with Tech Deals, it's just that they're not using real names. I can appreciate Timmy Joe and Greg Salazar in the sense that we have names. But besides, other than that, I think Tech Deals does very, very good work. And a lot of the advice is very practical. A lot of things that Tech talks about I think, wow, he explained that really well. I wish I could have explained it that well. So he's doing both Tech and Rogue. I always refer to him, which isn't fair, because Rogue is also doing fantastic stuff, as is Muse and others that work for them, with them, however that's working out. But I think that I guess I can see myself with Tech. You know what I mean? I can kind of see eye to eye there, like a brother. I don't think Rogue or Muse are like brothers for obvious reasons. So I think that's why I subconsciously keep referring to Tech. But regardless, they're all very, very good on that channel. So, but they're not hurting for viewers. They're doing really good. But check them out. And again, Greg Salazar, Timmy Joe. If you like my channel, I think you will like them as well. Nikki Naki New contributes 25 pounds. He says, I'm glad I dropped in at 8:30 a.m. in the UK. Peace, Carrie. P.S. If the 24th brings in Windows 11, look forward to watching your streams. Yeah, well, I'll have more to report on June 24th when the news gets out. But by the time I report it, you're already going to know. So it's all speculation. But one of the advantages or disadvantages that I have is I've been in the business since Microsoft basically was like, well, I wouldn't say I was in the business. I was using computers when Microsoft, Bill Gates was still traveling to computer clubs, talking to computer clubs, asking them not to steal DOS. And he was asking them personally. Bill Gates, right there on stage. I wasn't at any of those, but like Steve Bass he was in charge of the Pasadena Computer User Group, and Bill Gates presented, he met up with Bill Gates because he was the founder and president of the user group, and Bill Gates was presenting, and this was back in, I guess, the 80s. And I was a hobbyist. I was a teenager, and I wasn't doing anything with IBM computers in that day. I was using TRS-80s and Ataris, not the gaming consoles, the computers. And, I did have the gaming console, don't get me wrong. I had a 2600. But besides the point, one of the things I noticed are the patterns, the circular patterns. So everything is old is new again. It's all deja vu. We've been through this not just once before, not just twice before, not 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 times, more times than I can count. It sort of gets boring, and it's hard for me to get excited about it because I just get let down. Oh, I'm so excited about this new thing they're going to talk about. And then you go, oh, is that it? That's all it was? I was all excited for weeks for this, so now I don't get excited anymore, so then I'm not disappointed. So I'm sure whatever it is, it's not going to be a surprise. I don't think they're going to blow my mind. I wish they would. I would love to have my mind blown again, but I am not going to hope for it and then be disappointed. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Another $1 from Chevy. Thank you, Chevy. 191x7 contributes 10 HRK. He says, David does tech stuff. Who's David? Random. Oh, that's the name of the channel. David does tech stuff, Random Gaming HD, and Tech Source. Yeah, I think I've seen a few of Tech Source. I don't know I've seen the other two, but yeah, check them out. Jason Wyrick says, way to be, just lower your standards. Listen, here's my motto. Expect more, accept less. I am a very optimistic pessimist. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for tonight. Thank you so much for hanging out with me on this late evening. It's almost 1 o'clock in the morning, so I should probably go to bed so I can be, what's the expression? Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed tomorrow for the build. Tomorrow at 1 o'clock Pacific time, I will be live. I hope you'll join me. And thanks to everybody who's contributed today. Thanks to my friends in blue for wearing out the trolls. I appreciate that. we always win through attrition every single time, and they're just so stupid they don't get it. So let them be stupid, and we'll still keep on winning through attrition. Eventually they figure it out, and then somebody young starts up again, and then we have to go through it again, and we will stand through attrition again and again and again, as I have since 2008 when I started the channel. And through attrition I win. That's how you win, just by existing, by not being knocked down, and if you are knocked down, by getting back up again and not being shut down. And there's been a number of times where the morons and idiots and delusional, chaotic, mentally ill people think they can have an impact on this channel, and they never have. They've never been able to impact this channel, which I think is freaking hilarious, that after 13 years they're still trying. It's like, okay, nobody's ever done it before, but maybe you'll be the guy. It's just silly. So it's silly because they don't own it, and they're nobody, and there's nothing, they don't have any power. They don't have any power or control. So it's funny that they think they have power and control, despite constantly being shut down, and despite years and years and years of this, I'm still here and they are not. And yet somebody else comes in and tries again, and it's like they're so stupid they don't realize all the people that tried before them that have since gone. So they each have to learn on their own. It's just how uncivilized some of us are. So I appreciate your help with the attrition. In the meantime, again, my friends in blue, thanks for your help. Everybody who's contributed, thanks for supporting the channel. I'll got to remember to update the links. Thanks for reminding me about the Amazon link, the PayPal link, and the Windows apps that I have. The AMD chipset notifier, the Netfix tool, and the Windows 10 optimizer. Yeah, I got to add those to my default note settings, so I will do that tonight. And Ryan, I haven't gotten around to finishing your PC, but I've got a few more things I got to do to it. Another couple weeks. But thank you for all of your support as well. If I haven't said it enough, I really appreciate it. Along with everybody else, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. And until then, I will find an outro. I don't even know why we have intros and outros. Why do we even do that? It's stupid. Because everybody else is doing it. Oh yeah, you know what else everybody else does? If you like the video, click thumbs up. And if you want to subscribe to my channel, blah, 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 blah. You've never heard that on a YouTube channel before. Ah. All right, guys, have a good night. I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye for now.